She was an S rank. The kind of woman a D rank nobody like Min Jaehyun should never be able to stand beside, let alone negotiate with. And the skill destroying her body was even rarer. Sacrifice. A unique ability. Her signature power. The exact reason she was special. So when Jaehyun calmly says he can heal her using that same skill, it sounds insane. Because he is not supposed to understand a power like that. He is not supposed to touch it. And he is definitely not supposed to take it. But the moment his mythic item reacts, everything changes. A blank card opens. The system locks onto sacrifice. And the ability that made an S-rank special starts becoming his. That is the moment you realize Min Jaehyun is broken in the worst possible way. He doesn't just survive people stronger than him. He takes what made them special in the first place. And the craziest part is, this monster used to be nothing more than a disposable D-rank human shield. Until the day he obtained a mythic item. The sky shimmers with a cosmic, violet hue, stars twinkling like distant diamonds against a backdrop of swirling nebulae. It is a sight of infinite beauty, yet it serves as the silent witness to a world transformed by powers beyond human comprehension. Beneath this celestial display, the earth trembles as a colossal dragon, its scales shimmering like molten gold, lets out a roar that shakes the very foundations of the mountains. Its eyes glow with an internal fire, and smoke curls from its nostrils, signaling a threat that no ordinary army could ever hope to face. Standing before this ancient terror is a lone female warrior, her white and gold armor reflecting the dragon's glow. She raises a staff topped with a brilliant, sun-like orb, her cape fluttering in the wind as she prepares to unleash a spell that will decide the fate of the world. Beside her, a male warrior watches, his face set in grim determination, knowing that the era of the raiders has truly begun. These are not just soldiers, they are the elite few who have awakened to hunt the shadow creatures that crawl from the darkness. We see them in action, a roguelike figure leaping through the air with twin daggers, eyes glowing red as he strikes down a monstrous, gray-skinned orc with jagged teeth. This is a world of high stakes and higher rewards. A young warrior in light plate armor grins widely, holding up a heavy gold necklace he just looted from a fallen foe, the sunlight catching the polished metal. They protect the innocent, standing as the thin line between civilization and total annihilation. A blonde-haired hero smiles gently through a chain-link fence at a crowd of adoring fans, his presence alone bringing a sense of security to the masses. It is a dangerous job, one that demands everything, but in return, these individuals are heralded as gods among men. They are the targets of every child's envy and every adult's dreams. They are the ones who inspire hope in a dying world. But for one young man sitting alone in a dark room, the glow of the television screen is the only light he has. He watches the heroes on the news, his arms crossed tightly over his chest, his own eyes reflecting a dull, hidden pain. To him, being a raider isn't just a dream, it's a burden he carries every single day. He knows the truth that the cameras never show. He knows that behind the glory lies a heart that beats faster than any normal human's, driven by a cocktail of adrenaline and pure, unadulterated terror. Suddenly, the screen of his mind erupts in a chaotic swirl of red and black. A silhouette stands amidst a field of falling red feathers, a dark omen of the violence to come. The air crackles with unnatural energy as bolts of yellow lightning arc across the darkness, followed by a searing explosion of orange flames that consumes everything in its path. The heat is palpable, the sound a deafening roar that drowns out all reason. In the center of this inferno, a young man stands with his back to us, a simple black sword strapped to his spine. He doesn't flinch as the world burns around him. He looks down, his face partially obscured, a single drop of blood or sweat sliding down his cheek. He is at the precipice of death, yet there is a strange, haunting calm in his eyes. The flames lick at his clothes, the sparks dancing in the air like fireflies, as he prepares to face whatever nightmare is waiting for him in the heart of the fire. The world turns white, the intensity of the light blinding, before slowly fading back into the mundane reality of a quiet cafe. The clinking of spoons against ceramic and the low hum of conversation replace the sounds of battle. Jae-hyun sits across from a man in a sharp suit, his expression one of pure, simmering rage. He slams his hand on the table, his voice a low hiss as he calls the man a crazy bastard. The suit-wearing man, Woo Min, flinches slightly, his glasses sliding down his nose as he tries to maintain his composure. Jae-hyun can't believe what he's hearing. Woo Min is asking him to be a meat shield, to stand on the front lines and take the hits so others can stay safe. Woo Min tries to play it off, calling Jae-hyun, Hyung, and reminding him that he needs money fast. Jae-hyun stares at him, his amber eyes narrowing. He thought it was strange that he was even invited to a high-level dungeon raid, but now the ugly truth is out. Woo Min isn't a friend, he's a broker, a man who sells lives for a commission. He works for the raider agency, acting as a middleman for independent raiders who don't have the protection of a guild. Jae-hyun remembers the phone call, the hope he felt when he thought he finally had a job after so long. He rubs his forehead, the weight of his circumstances pressing down on him like lead. He's being asked to walk into a dungeon full of undead monsters with nothing but a shield and his own fading strength. It's a death sentence disguised as an opportunity. He asks why this is the only job available, his voice dripping with bitterness. He knows kids with lower ranks than him who find work easily. Wu Min sighs, adjusting his glasses, and delivers the bitter truth. Even with a high rank, nobody wants a warrior class raider anymore. The meta has shifted. Nowadays, the magicians are the ones owning the scene. They can clear rooms from a distance, staying safe in the rear while the warriors in the front do nothing but collect scars and hospital bills. In large-scale battles, magic is simply more efficient. Jae-hyun knows this better than anyone. 10 years ago, the world was different, but now there is no place for someone like him. He curses his past self, wishing he had picked magic when he had the chance. 11 years ago, in his third year of middle school, Jae-hyun took the Awakener aptitude test. He was a prodigy. We see his younger self, a bright-eyed boy holding a test result that would make any guild leader drool. His magic aptitude was a staggering 97%. To put that in perspective, the current top magician in the country, the legendary Co Aina, only had an aptitude of 92%. Jae-hyun was literally out of this world. But on the other hand, his combat aptitude was a measly 34%. Yet, in a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life, he chose combat. He didn't have a grand reason. Back then, magic users had the worst reputation. They were seen as human buffing machines, unable to kill even a low-rank monster without a warrior to protect them. They were the sidekicks, the afterthoughts. Jae-hyun wanted to be the hero, the one with the sword in his hand. Now, the roles have reversed. Combat users are in decline, while magic users are heralded as the supreme force on the battlefield. Jae-hyun stares out the window, wondering if his life would be better if he had just followed the numbers. Normally, a raider's growth stops at age 20, and at 25, Jae-hyun feels like he's already reached his limit. He feels like he's drowning, his hand reaching up through dark, murky water as bubbles rise to the surface. There's no point in regret, but the sting of what could have been never truly goes away. Wu Min breaks his train of thought, leaning in and whispering that opportunities like this don't come often. He claims he came to Jae-hyun first because he remembered his difficult circumstances. Jae-hyun clenches his fist under the table, the leather of his glove creaking. He used to be the envy of everyone, a talent that comes once in a generation. Now, he's just a lowly D-rank warrior, a relic of a forgotten era. His life has taken a turn for the worse, and he's running out of options. With a heavy sigh, he finally relents. He tells Wu Min he'll do it. Wu Min's face lights up with a fake, predatory smile. He tells Jae-hyun he's making the right choice and promises to text him the location for tomorrow morning. Jae-hyun stands up, his movements heavy. He asks why Wu Min is even meeting him at the dungeon entrance since he's usually busy with agency paperwork. Wu Min just tells him not to worry and to focus on the work, but there's a glint in his eyes that Jae-hyun doesn't like. He has something to do there, something he isn't sharing. The next day arrives with a pale, watery sun filtering through the thick canopy of an ancient forest. The air is damp and smells of moss and old magic. In the center of a clearing, a massive tree stands, its bark twisted into the shape of a yawning mouth. Inside the hollow, a swirling blue vortex of energy hums with power, the entrance to the dungeon. Raiders of all types are gathered, their armor clinking as they check their gear. Jae-hyun stands off to the side, leaning against a moss-covered rock, his arms crossed. He checks his phone. It's nearly 9 a.m., and Wu Min is nowhere to be seen. He mutters under his breath, calling the broker a bastard. He should have known better than to trust him. Jae-hyun looks around at the other raiders, feeling the familiar pang of inadequacy. Truth be told, Wu Min is an A-rank magician. He could join any top-tier guild he wanted, yet he wastes his time acting as a broker at a bottom-tier agency. Jae-hyun can't wrap his head around it. If he had that kind of power, he wouldn't be standing here in the dirt. He feels a shadow fall over him and looks up to see a large man in heavy plate armor waving at him. It's Myung-ho, another warrior Jae-hyun has worked with before. Myung-ho is a simple man, his face weathered but kind. He's happy to see a familiar face, noting that there isn't much work for their kind these days. He admits that these jobs are dangerous, but the pay is too good to pass up. Jae-hyun nods, his expression guarded. He knows that for warriors, danger is the only thing that pays. Myung-ho starts complaining about the kids these days who have no love for the sword, preferring to hide in the back and throw fireballs. Jae-hyun thinks to himself that love has nothing to do with it. It's about survival. He's about to starve to death, and pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. Myung-ho claps him on the shoulder, his gauntlet heavy against Jae-hyun's dark tunic. He suggests they go for drinks after the raid, his optimism almost grating. Jae-hyun gives a non-committal answer, his eyes drifting back to the dungeon entrance. Myung-ho sighs, his smile faltering for a moment as he admits he's short on cash and can't pay for the drinks this time. Jae-hyun just stares at him, realizing how easy it is to read the man. Myung-ho eventually cracks, laughing nervously and promising to pay one last time. Jae-hyun feels a flicker of guilt for imposing on him, but he quickly suppresses it. In this world, you take what you can get. A man in a sharp black suit and sunglasses, looking more like a bodyguard than a raider, steps forward and shouts for everyone to gather. They'll be entering in 30 minutes. The tension in the air ratchets up. Raiders begin to sharpen their blades and check their mana potions. Jae-hyun takes a moment to look at his phone one last time. He opens a photo of a woman with long, brown hair and a gentle smile, his mother. He whispers a silent promise to her that he'll be back safely. He knows the risks. Dungeons are places of unexpected fortune, but they are also traps for the unwary. He thinks of the mimics, monsters disguised as treasure chests that wait for a raider to let their guard down. We see a vision of a chest opening, not to reveal gold, but a mouth full of jagged teeth and a long, lashing tongue. Dungeons test your mind, turning your greed into a weapon against you. Tragedy often wears the mask of fortune. Jae-hyun tucks his phone away, his face hardening into a mask of professional indifference. He hears someone calling his name and looks up to see Myung-ho watching him. The older warrior asks if he's looking at a picture of a girlfriend. Jae-hyun just says it's nothing, a small smile playing on his lips for the first time. He looks up at the massive tree, the sunlight breaking through the leaves in long, golden shafts. The portal pulses with a rhythmic, heartbeat-like sound. It's time. The group moves into the darkness, the transition from the bright forest to the cold stone of the dungeon jarring. The interior is a vast, Gothic nightmare of crumbling arches and flickering green torches. The air is thick with the smell of decay. Almost immediately, the shadows begin to move. A horde of undead, their flesh gray and hanging in tatters, shambles toward them. A magician leader, his robes embroidered with the sigil of the Meteor Guild, screams at the tanks to raise their shields and keep the line straight. He's arrogant, his voice echoing off the stone walls as he demands absolute obedience, even if it costs them their lives. Jae-hyun grunts as he slams his shield into a reaching zombie, his muscles straining. He hates this job. He hates being the one to take the brunt of the filth while the magician stands safely behind him. Suddenly, the air behind him erupts in heat. The magicians begin their chant, calling upon the radiant lights of Alfheim and the flames of Surtur. A massive fireball, swirling with intense orange and yellow energy, streaks over Jae-hyun's head. It hits the center of the undead horde with a deafening explosion, incinerating dozens of monsters in an instant. The Meteor Guild is a rising star for a reason, their firepower is undeniable. Jae-hyun watches the flames, the heat singeing the hair on his arms. He realizes that as long as they are this powerful, he might actually survive the day. After the initial wave is cleared, the group takes a short breather. Myung-ho sits on a fallen stone pillar, gulping down water from a canteen. He wipes his mouth and sighs, lamenting that getting old isn't easy. He wishes he had spent less time playing around as a kid and more time leveling up. Jae-hyun leans against a wall, his eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. He tells Myung-ho he's still plenty lively and a higher level than him anyway. He asks if Myung-ho found any good drops. Myung-ho checks his holographic inventory screen, noting that since this is an A-rank dungeon, the loot should be decent. Jae-hyun decides to check his own status. He reaches out to tap the air, expecting his system window to appear. But something is wrong. Instead of his familiar stats, a distorted, flickering blue box appears. It's filled with static and strange, glowing artifacts. Jae-hyun's eyes widen. He's never seen anything like this. Suddenly, a sharp pain lances through his head, and he stumbles, clutching his temple. A series of system notifications flash rapidly before his eyes. The Acer system has gone down. The connection with the user is being temporarily cut. Rebooting, failed. Jae-hyun panics. A raider without a system is blind and powerless. He hears a voice, but it isn't coming from the people around him. It's a whisper that seems to echo from inside his own skull, cold and ancient. It tells him to follow the light. He looks up, his breath hitching in his chest. Floating in the air, invisible to everyone else, are small, glowing orbs of pale green light. They drift toward a dark corridor, beckoning him. Myung-ho notices Jae-hyun's strange behavior and asks if he's sick. Jae-hyun shakes his head, his eyes fixed on the drifting lights. He asks if anyone else saw that, but the blank stares of his comrades give him his answer. The lights pulse with a strange, hypnotic rhythm. Jae-hyun knows he should stay with the group, but the voice in his head is insistent. He feels a pull in his gut, a sense that his entire life has been leading to this moment. He takes a step toward the darkness, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. He has to check it out. Myung-ho calls out to him, asking where he's going, but Jae-hyun doesn't stop. He disappears into the shadows, following the mysterious glow into the unknown depths of the dungeon. He looks determined, his amber eyes fixed on something only he can see, a hidden urgency driving his steps as sweat beads on his forehead. A black screen swallows the scene, punctuated only by a stark, white box containing a single, desperate question. what in the world is going on? It's the silent scream of a man whose reality is beginning to fracture. Deep within the shadows of a jagged rock formation, Jae-hyun stands alone. The air around him begins to shimmer with a pale, ethereal light. Small, golden orbs drift upward like embers from a dying fire, illuminating the rough texture of the cave walls. The light intensifies, coalescing into a brilliant, blinding sphere that pulses with an ancient, rhythmic energy. It's beautiful, yet terrifying, a manifestation of power that feels entirely alien to this world. Jae-hyun raises his gloved hand, his fingers trembling slightly as he reaches out to tap the empty air. He's trying to summon his status window, the one constant in a raider's life. But instead of the clean, blue interface he expects, a distorted, flickering box appears. It's filled with static, the edges blurring and warping as if the very fabric of the system is being torn apart. His expression hardens, a mixture of confusion and growing dread crossing his features. He stares at the malfunctioning screen, his brow furrowed. He mutters to himself that it really isn't working, a sense of isolation settling over him. Suddenly, a new notification flashes, the text jagged and unstable. It warns that a function is partially damaged, followed quickly by another stating that the system will attempt a reboot in safety mode. Jae-hyun winces, clutching his head as a sharp, stabbing pain flares behind his eyes. He gasps for air, his body leaning against the cold stone for support. He curses under his breath, wondering what is happening. He's been an Awakened for 17 years, ever since he was a 10-year-old boy full of dreams. In all that time, the system has never failed him. It has been his guide, his weapon, and his lifeline. To have it go down now, in the middle of an A-rank dungeon, is a nightmare he never prepared for. He thinks back to the voice he heard, a cold, ancient whisper that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to his soul. It told him to follow the light. There is a high chance, he realizes, that the voice and the system failure are linked. The system window before him erupts in a chaotic mess of digital artifacts and red warning signs. It informs him that the connection with the user will temporarily be cut because an unknown presence has infiltrated the Acer system. The attempt to reboot fails spectacularly. The screen shatters into 1,000 digital shards, leaving Jae-hyun in total darkness. He reflects on the gravity of the situation. An unknown presence. Something has breached the most powerful construct known to man. The voice, the light, the failure, it all points to a singular, terrifying truth. He suspects that the Acer system is going through a massive change, his gaze drifting toward the dark tunnel ahead. He knows that in this world, change rarely means something good. He takes a deep breath, adjusting the strap of the shield on his back. He has to know what's at the end of this path. He steps forward, his boots crunching on the gravel, disappearing into the maw of the unknown. A blood-stained parchment appears, the words, "The Acer System," written in a bold, archaic script. Behind the text, an illustration of a majestic, one-eyed king seated on a throne emerges, Odin, the All-Father. The system's name isn't just a coincidence, it's a direct reference to the Asgardian gods of myth. Scholars have long theorized that the power raiders wield originated from these ancient entities, a gift or a curse from a pantheon long thought dead. This system was the final bastion of hope for a humanity driven to the brink of extinction. The scene shifts back 20 years to 2011, the year of calamity. A massive cruise ship is tossed like a toy on a violent, churning sea. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, something impossible happened. A giant tree, its roots reaching deep into the ocean floor and its branches piercing the very clouds, sprouted from the depths. It was a tree of unknowable height, a cosmic anomaly that defied every law of nature. It grew with terrifying speed, covering the skies of the entire planet in just 9 days. The world was plunged into a perpetual twilight, the sun's rays blocked by a canopy of celestial leaves. The reactions were divided. Some saw it as the ultimate sign of human extinction, a cosmic shroud being pulled over the earth. Others, desperate for any sign of salvation, called it the Tree of Blessing. But history would remember its true name, whispered in the halls of ancient cathedrals and carved into the ruins of fallen cities, Yggdrasil. The world tree of mythology had become a physical reality. And on the 9th day, after the tree had fully matured, the tragedy began. The sky didn't just darken, it bled. From the branches of Yggdrasil, monsters descended. Colossal dragons with scales like obsidian and eyes like burning coals tore through the clouds. Harpies with razor-sharp talons snatched people from the streets. The world's militaries were useless against these supernatural predators. All over the world, disasters of an unprecedented scale broke out. Half of mankind was slaughtered in the initial weeks of the invasion. Those who survived the monsters faced an even grimmer fate. Famine and plague swept across the continents, claiming half of the remaining population. It was a time of absolute despair, where the only thing more common than death was the prayer for a miracle. In that darkest hour, a flicker of light appeared. A silhouette stands amidst a roaring inferno, a lone figure facing a pack of snarling, red-eyed wolves. The man doesn't flinch as the beasts leap toward him. Suddenly, a burst of golden energy erupts from his body, incinerating the monsters in an instant. This was the birth of hope. The first awakened had appeared, a human who wielded the authority of the gods themselves. A wolf-like monster, its fur matted with blood and its jaws dripping with saliva, lunges at a terrified civilian. But before it can strike, a hand clad in a white sleeve reaches out. The man's eyes glow with a cold, purple light as he unleashes a wave of dark energy. The monster is torn apart, its body dissolving into black mist. More awakened followed, individuals who could tap into the Acer system to gain superhuman strength and magical abilities. They became the hunters of the new world, the raiders. A group of them stands before a colossal, fire-breathing dragon, their weapons glowing with enchanted power. They were the shield and the sword of humanity, the only thing standing between civilization and total darkness. Back in the present, Jae-hyun walks through the silent dungeon, his mind heavy with these thoughts. The Acer system is the strongest weapon wielded by the strongest heroes. It is the foundation of their world. He wonders what it means if something big were to change within the system. He looks at the glowing orbs around him, his expression grim, finding it difficult to see the situation in a positive light. He rounds a corner and freezes. His boots skid on the sandy floor as he stares up in awe. Before him stands a giant, ornate door embedded into the cave wall. It's made of a dark, weathered metal, covered in intricate carvings of wolves and celestial symbols. A large, eye-like gem is set into the center, glowing with a faint, pulsing green light. He whispers to himself, shocked to find such a giant door hidden here. A realization hits him like a physical blow. His eyes widen, and a small, involuntary smile tugs at the corner of his mouth. He wonders if it could really be what he thinks. He knows exactly what this is. It's a treasure gate, a legendary hidden room that very rarely appears within high-tier dungeons. These aren't just rooms, they are vaults of the gods, containing items that can change a raider's destiny overnight. He thinks of the stories he's heard. Treasure gates normally contain special items or rare ingredients that can't be found anywhere else. Even the most basic items from a gate like this sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars on the black market. He muses that if something A-class or higher appears in here, he can quit his shitty life right away. He closes his eyes for a moment, a silent prayer escaping his lips, begging for A-class or higher gear. He pushes against the heavy doors. They groan on ancient hinges, slowly swinging inward to reveal a chamber filled with a brilliant, golden radiance. The light is so intense that Jae-hyun has to shield his eyes, his silhouette cast long and dark against the floor. He steps inside, the air feeling thick with concentrated mana. The chamber is vast, with towering pillars that seem to reach up into a starlit sky. In the center, a stone pedestal stands bathed in a column of light. Atop the pedestal sits a small, circular object. It's a mechanical eye, crafted from gold and silver, with a glowing core that seems to stare back at him. Jae-hyun approaches slowly, his heart hammering against his ribs. He can't believe there is a space like this in a dungeon, realizing the talk on TV wasn't just an urban legend. He reaches the pedestal, the golden light reflecting in his amber eyes. The object hums with a low, resonant frequency that vibrates in his very bones. He concludes that no matter how he looks at it, that must be the item. He hesitates for a split second, then reaches out, asking himself if he should check what amazing item is hidden here. His fingers brush against the cold metal of the eye. The moment he touches it, a surge of power lances through his arm, and the entire room erupts in a flash of white light. System notifications begin to scroll rapidly across his vision. The blue box is finally stable and clear. One informs him that a partial recovery of the system's functions has succeeded. Then, the big reveal, a new equipment item has been acquired, and the system asks if he would like to appraise it. Jae-hyun's breath hitches. The system is back, and it's brought news that will change everything. A confident smirk spreads across his face. He thinks to himself that things are finally progressing in a proper way. The system was reinstated at the perfect time. They say good things come in waves, and right now, Jae-hyun is riding a tsunami. He looks down at the item in his hand, the golden eye glowing with an intense, divine light. The appraisal window opens, and Jae-hyun's jaw drops. The name is Odin's Lost Eye, and its rating is Mythic. The description is staggering. This is the eye Odin gave up to gain wisdom at Mimir's well. It allows the user to understand runes and use magic to disarm or destroy any construct. It is the only mythic item in the entire world. Jae-hyun stares at the word mythic, his mind reeling. He's never even seen an S-rank item in person, let alone something of this caliber. But there's more. An active skill is attached, universal derivation, with an EX rating. It allows him to convert magic into formulas and destroy them. And the passive effects are even better. He can use powerful magic without incanting, and he can use blank cards to copy another person's skills without any penalties. He asks himself if this is for real, his hands shaking. This isn't just a good item, it's a god-tier artifact. He thinks of the market value. S-rank items sell for tens of millions of dollars. A mythic item, especially one related to magic, would allow him to name his price. He could live like a king for the rest of his life. He realizes that with this, he won't need to suffer anymore. He won't be looked down on by guilds, and he won't be forced to act as a meat shield in dungeons. His shitty raider life is finally over. He looks at the eye, a sudden impulse taking hold. He wonders if he should at least try it on, imagining the power coursing through him. He asks himself when he will ever get to touch another mythic rank item. He brings the eye toward his face, but a red warning window slams open. It warns him that Odin's lost eye becomes bound once equipped and asks if he still wants to proceed. Jaehyun freezes, his face turning pale. He screams internally to cancel it immediately. If it's bound, he can't sell it. He'd be stuck with the power but no money. He collapses to his knees, clutching the eye to his chest as he gasps for breath. He feels like he almost wasted the mythic ranked item that was so difficult to obtain. He wipes the sweat from his brow, a nervous laugh escaping him. He tells himself he has no reason to equip this. If he sells this on the black market, it'll be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He looks at his reflection in the glowing eye. Even with this power, he doesn't want to continue raiding. He's 27 years old. In this world, a raider's growth stops at 20. He's already reached his limit. Even a mythic item wouldn't be very effective in the hands of a D-rank warrior who can't level up. Selling it is the only logical choice. He tucks the eye into a secure pouch, his resolve hardening. The system failure was an unexpected complication, an unprecedented anomaly, but he's used to things going wrong. In the world of dungeons, you either find fortune or tragedy. He's found his fortune. Now, he just needs to get out alive. He turns and begins the long walk back to the main group. Back in the main hall of the dungeon, Myung-ho is pacing back and forth, his face pale with anxiety. He's sweating profusely, his hands fumbling with the straps of his armor. He mutters to the other raiders that Jaehyun will probably be back soon, explaining that he just went to check something quickly. He begs them to wait just a bit longer. Suddenly, he spots a figure emerging from the shadows and shouts out in relief, seeing Jaehyun return. Jaehyun walks toward them, his expression neutral, hiding the storm of emotions inside. The raid leader, a magician in ornate blue robes, crosses his arms and glares at him. He barks at Jaehyun to come quickly, stating they will be departing for the raid soon. Jaehyun bows his head slightly, apologizing for being late. The leader warns him that acting independently will make things difficult and hopes it won't happen again. Jaehyun simply nods and promises to be more careful next time. Myung-ho watches him, a strange look in his eyes. He notices a change in Jaehyun, a newfound calmness, a weight in his gaze that wasn't there before. He wonders if, at age 27, Jaehyun has finally matured. Jaehyun catches his eye and gives a small, genuine smile. He tells Myung-ho he's alright and offers to pay for the drinks tonight, saying he can't always be the one mooching off him. Myung-ho blinks in surprise, agreeing tentatively. Jaehyun turns away, his smile fading as he looks at the group of raiders. He knows he has to be careful. He sighs in relief, thinking that for now, he's gotten away with it. He scans the room, his eyes narrowing. This is a dungeon, a lawless place where nothing that happens is exposed to the outside world. If anyone found out he had a mythic item, they wouldn't congratulate him, they would kill him for it. Spreading that knowledge is just asking to be murdered. He decides to wait until the raid is over to sell the item as planned. For now, the most important thing is to avoid gathering suspicion. He blends back into the line, just another D-rank warrior waiting for orders. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoes through the chamber. The stone walls begin to fracture, long fissures snaking across the ceiling. Dust and debris rain down on the startled raiders. The magician leader looks up, his eyes wide with shock. He starts to announce that the front line has gathered and they will restart the raid, but he never finishes his sentence. A massive explosion rocks the room, a wall of fire and stone erupting from the corridor. Chaos erupts. Raiders scream as they are thrown through the air by the force of the blast. Jaehyun is knocked to the ground, his ears ringing. He looks up, his vision blurred by smoke and dust. Someone screams, asking what that was. Jaehyun grinds his teeth, his hand reaching for his sword, wondering what is going on. A thick, purple mist begins to seep into the room from the cracks in the walls. It spreads with unnatural speed, swirling around the feet of the raiders. A female magician nearby begins to cough violently, her hands clutching her throat. She gasps, asking what the mist is, before collapsing to her knees. Jaehyun covers his mouth and nose with his glove, realizing with horror that it's poison mist. He realizes the danger immediately. If he breathes this in too long, he'll die. He tells himself he has to get out of here. He looks around for Myung-ho, his heart sinking. He shouts for everyone to get out. A silver blade, dripping with fresh blood, erupts from Myung-ho's chest. The older warrior's eyes bulge, a spray of crimson coughing from his mouth. He looks down at the sword in disbelief, his body trembling. Jae-hyun screams Myung-ho's name, his voice cracking with horror. The blade is ripped out, and Myung-ho collapses like a puppet with its strings cut. Behind him, a dark figure cloaked in shadows emerges from the mist, their eyes glowing with a murderous intent. Jae-hyun stands frozen, the blood of his friend splattered across his face. His heart hammers against his ribs with a frantic rhythm. His mind screams that he has to run. He turns and bolts, his boots pounding against the stone floor. Behind him, more explosions rock the dungeon, the sound of crumbling stone and dying screams filling the air. He doesn't look back. He can't. The poison mist continues to spread, turning the dungeon into a purple-hued graveyard. Jae-hyun realizes the terrifying truth. These aren't the actions of a monster. Monsters don't use poison gas and coordinated explosions. He realizes these are definitely the actions of dungeon contract killers. He wonders if their objective is the annihilation of the Meteor Guild. He looks toward the entrance, but it's blocked by a wall of fire. He's trapped in a lawless hell, and the hunters have become the prey. This is a mythic item I just obtained, he thinks, the weight of the artifact heavy in his mind and soul. Do you think I'll just die like this? He refuses to accept a pathetic end. He stands in the shadows, every sense heightened, sweat dripping down his face and stinging his eyes. He can feel a presence approaching, a heavy, suffocating weight of killing intent that makes the very air feel thick. Suddenly, a massive pillar of fire and lightning erupts from the darkness, tearing through the silence of the dungeon with a deafening roar. The sheer force of the energy makes the ground beneath his feet tremble and crack. Jae-hyun's eyes narrow as he shields his face from the blinding, golden light. The heat is intense, singeing the air and filling his lungs with the smell of ozone. The lightning arcs across the ceiling like jagged claws, illuminating the rough cave walls for a split second before plunging everything back into a terrifying, smoky twilight. He raises his shield just in time as a wave of raw magical energy crashes against him. The impact vibrates through his entire body, a bone-jarring force that threatens to shatter his resolve. "Cook!" he groans, his boots skidding across the sandy stone floor as he struggles to stay upright. The power behind the attack is unlike anything he's ever faced in his 17 years as an awakened. He's pushed back into the darkness, the light of the explosion fading into a dull, orange glow, leaving only the sound of his own ragged breathing. He gasps for air, his face covered in soot and grime, his amber eyes searching the gloom for the source of the attack. A voice cuts through the silence, cold, mocking, and terrifyingly familiar. "I knew you would survive, Hyung." A figure emerges from the shadows, a hooded man with a smug, self-assured smile playing on his lips. He looks completely at ease amidst the destruction he's caused. He keeps his hands buried deep in his pockets, his posture relaxed and casual, as if he's just out for a stroll rather than committing mass murder in a lawless hell. Jae-hyun's breath hitches in his throat. He recognizes that voice. He recognizes that insufferable arrogance. "Young Woo-min," he whispers, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. Woo-min tilts his head, his glasses reflecting the dying embers of the fire like twin suns. He looks down at Jae-hyun with a mixture of pity and sadistic amusement. He steps closer, the light catching the sharp, handsome lines of his face. He looks like a predator who has finally cornered a particularly interesting piece of prey. "I told you, right?" Woo-min says, his voice smooth and dangerous, carrying an edge that cuts deeper than any blade. "That I'd be visiting you today." He raises a hand, and sparks of golden lightning begin to dance between his fingers, a beautiful and deadly display of power. The title, "I obtained a mythic item," flashes across the screen, a stark reminder of the incredible stakes at play in this dark corner of the world. Woo-min's social media handle appears briefly, a reminder of his status as a celebrity hero in the outside world, a hero who is currently moonlighting as a butcher. He stands tall, the light of his magic casting a long, menacing shadow that seems to swallow Jae-hyun whole. He looks every bit the A-rank magician he is, a pinnacle of human evolution. He continues to walk forward, his boots clicking rhythmically on the hard ground, a countdown to Jae-hyun's execution. "I told you, didn't I?" he repeats, savoring the fear he sees reflected in Jae-hyun's eyes. "That we'd see each other today." He stops just a few feet away, his eyes glowing with a faint, unnatural light that speaks of immense mana reserves. He chuckles, a low, grating sound that echoes through the chamber and makes Jae-hyun's skin crawl. Jae-hyun grits his teeth, his hand trembling on the hilt of his sword as he prepares for the end. "Jong Woo-min," Jae-hyun says again, his voice firmer this time, a spark of defiance lighting up his gaze. "Is this all you're doing?" Jae-hyun asks, gesturing to the smoke and the distant, dying screams echoing from the main hall. "Spreading the poison fog and attacking the Meteor Guild." The scale of the betrayal is almost too much to comprehend. Woo-min's smile widens, revealing a row of perfectly white, predatory teeth. He looks genuinely pleased with the chaos he's unleashed. "Yes, that's right," he admits without a hint of remorse, his voice as casual as if he were discussing the weather. He reaches out a hand, a mocking invitation to witness the end of an era. Jae-hyun recoils, his skin crawling with a deep, visceral disgust for the man standing before him. "Stay calm." I have to get a grip on the situation first, Jae-hyun tells himself, his mind working at a frantic pace to find a weakness. He looks at the blood on his armor, the reality of his comrades' deaths finally sinking in. Why? He asks, his voice barely a whisper against the roaring of the flames. Woo-min shrugs, a casual gesture that belies the gravity of his horrific actions. Well, it was a request from my client. He speaks of murder as if it were a simple business transaction. Plus, there are a lot of people who dislike the Meteor Guild, he adds, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses with a sudden, sharp intensity. They've been looking down on the other guilds too much. Wouldn't it be more strange if they weren't on everyone's bad side? The words Dungeon Assassins appear on the screen, a dark and heavy title for those who have abandoned their humanity. These are the people who misuse closed dungeons, places where the laws of man are replaced by the law of the jungle. They commit murder inside these isolated pockets of reality, knowing that the Acer system won't report their crimes to the authorities. According to the circumstances, the surprise attack on the Meteor Guild this time was a masterpiece of tactical planning. It was perpetrated under such a blind spot, a moment of absolute vulnerability that the assassins exploited with ruthless, surgical efficiency. Shit. Jae-hyun curses, realizing how deep the conspiracy truly goes. He's just a D-rank pawn in a game played by monsters. He looks at Woo-min, the power radiating from the magician almost suffocating in its intensity. Can I take him on? He wonders, his mind already knowing the answer. Woo-min stands enveloped in a swirling aura of blue mana, his presence dominating the room and making Jae-hyun feel small and insignificant. No, it's impossible, Jae-hyun concludes, the bitter taste of defeat filling his mouth. The gap in their ranks is a vast, unbridgeable chasm. Jong Woo-min is an A-rank magician, one of the geniuses that compose the top 2% of the entire country. He's a monster in human skin. On the other hand, I'm only a D-rank, Jae-hyun thinks, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his own perceived weakness. I'm not particularly skilled, nor am I weak. I'm just average, he reflects, knowing that in this world, average is just another word for the victim. Plus, I'm not their goal in the first place, he realizes, a small spark of hope flickering in the darkness. I just have to keep my mouth shut. But with the Acer system down at the moment, there's no guarantee that he can even find his way out of this hellhole. He thinks of the other raiders, the men and women he's shared meals and stories with. They are being slaughtered like cattle in a pen. It's unfair, but there is no other way, he thinks, his heart heavy with a guilt that threatens to drown him. He remembers the faces of those who fought with him in the defense line, their courage and their simple dreams. Of course, I would like to get revenge for them, especially Myung-ho-hyung, he thinks, a single, hot tear stinging his eye. But realistically, there's nothing he can do. He's just one man against an army of professional killers. Jong Woo-min, he says, his voice cracking with emotion. He looks at the magician, who is watching him with a bored, expectant expression. As the Yggdrasil sprouted, the world became a place where only the strong have the right to live, Woo-min muses. I'll pretend as if nothing happened today, Woo-min offers, his voice dripping with a false, sickening sincerity. The world was tragically intolerant of the weak, Jae-hyun thinks, his anger finally beginning to boil over and replace his fear. So, Hyung, did you know? Woo-min asks, his hand glowing with a sudden, blindingly intense light. He unleashes a massive blast of fire, the flames roaring like a hungry beast as they tear through the air toward Jae-hyun. Jae-hyun barely manages to dive out of the way, the heat singeing his hair and the smell of burning fabric filling his nose. The explosion rocks the entire dungeon, sending a shower of sparks and debris into the air. He rolls across the hard stone floor, his armor clattering and his breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. He looks up, his vision blurred by smoke and tears, seeing Woo-min standing in the center of the inferno like a god of destruction. A small, sharp cut opens on Jae-hyun's cheek, a single drop of crimson blood trickling down his face. If I had reacted even a little bit late, I would have died for sure, he realizes, the cold hand of mortality gripping his heart with an icy strength. Woo-min looks at him, his expression one of mild, insulting disappointment. He expected more of a challenge from someone who survived the initial blast. That today's dungeon target wasn't only the Meteor Guild, Woo-min reveals, his voice echoing through the chamber like a funeral knell. He snaps his fingers, and more explosions rock the dungeon, the sound of crumbling stone and dying screams filling the air. Woo-min raises both hands, and the air around him begins to crackle and pop with raw electricity. Chae-ke, he screams as he unleashes a barrage of lightning bolts that arc through the air like golden serpents. Jae-hyun scrambles to his feet, his shield raised in a desperate attempt to block the onslaught. The lightning strikes the ground all around him, sending shards of stone flying like shrapnel. He's trapped in a cage of crackling electricity, the air humming with a power that makes his teeth ache. Kwaang! Another explosion rocks the room, throwing Jae-hyun off balance and sending him crashing into the jagged wall. He hits the stone hard, the breath knocked out of his lungs and his vision swimming with dark spots. He slides to the floor, his shield falling from his numb fingers with a hollow clang. He's exhausted, his body screaming in protest at every movement. He looks up at Woo-min, who is slowly walking toward him, a look of absolute triumph on his face. Shit, I need to get out of this situation no matter what, Jae-hyun thinks, his mind racing for any possible escape. Woo-min laughs, a high-pitched, manic sound that echoes the madness of the world they now live in. Why is he after me? Jae-hyun wonders, his heart pounding against his ribs. I'm just a D-rank raider. I have nothing he could possibly want. He looks at the magician, searching for any sign of a motive, but all he sees is the cold, empty void of a killer's eyes. Have I done something wrong to somebody? He asks himself, his mind flashing back to every mistake he's ever made. Woo-min raises a hand, and a massive sphere of golden energy begins to form above his head, pulsing with a terrifying power. Is there someone who wishes for my death? Jae-hyun wonders, the thought sending a shiver of dread down his spine. He thinks of his family, of the dark secrets and the bitter hatred that have defined his life. Think, who is it? He commands himself, forcing his mind to work through the pain and the fear. Who would? He stops, a sudden, horrifying realization hitting him like a bolt of lightning. He remembers the cold, distant look in his father's eyes, a look that never held a shred of love. He remembers the way his mother died, alone and afraid, while his father watched with indifference. He looks at Woo-min, his eyes wide with a new kind of shock. Was it my father? He asks, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. Woo-min stops, the sphere of energy flickering for a split second as he registers the question. He looks at Jae-hyun with a new sense of genuine interest. Useless bastard, a voice echoes in Jae-hyun's mind, the voice of the man who was supposed to protect him. I don't know how a brat like you was conceived, the voice continues, dripping with a contempt that has haunted Jae-hyun for years. Jae-hyun's head drops, his hair shadowing his eyes as he grapples with the weight of his father's betrayal. He stands in the darkness, the weight of his father's hatred pressing down on him more heavily than any stone. He looks up at Woo-min, his expression one of pure, unadulterated defiance. Was it my father? He repeats, his voice stronger now. Woo-min stares at him for a long, silent moment, his smug smile finally fading into something more complex. Then, he begins to laugh, a low chuckle that grows into a full-blown, hysterical roar of amusement. He doubles over, his laughter echoing through the dungeon and mocking Jae-hyun's pain. He wipes a stray tear from his eye, his breath hitching as he tries to regain his composure. Ah, really? He looks at Jae-hyun, his eyes gleaming with a strange, almost admiring light. You really are smart, Hyung. He tries to contain his laughter, but it's no use. He's completely lost in the absurdity of the moment. Ha, ah ha 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 ha. He throws his head back, his laughter filling the chamber and drowning out the sounds of the dying. Jae-hyun stands frozen, watching the magician's breakdown with a mixture of horror and confusion. Woo-min finally stops laughing, his expression turning deadly serious in an instant. That's why I like you, he says, his voice low and intimate. He looks at Jae-hyun with a predatory gaze that makes Jae-hyun's blood run cold. You see things that others miss, Hyung. Jae-hyun's eyes are shadowed, his face a mask of grim determination as he prepares for the final confrontation. He thinks of his mother, her kind face and the way she used to sing to him when he was a child. He remembers the day she died, the blood on the floor and the absolute coldness in his father's eyes as he walked away. Let me ask you one thing, Jae-hyun says, his voice cold and hard as the stone around them. He thinks of the 5 long years he spent as a raider, 5 years of struggling just to survive another day. 5 years ago, in winter. The memory is as clear and sharp as a shard of ice in his heart. Did that person also commission something like this back then? He asks, his voice full of a deep, ancient pain. Woo-min's smile returns, more sinister and twisted than ever before. Ah, I never thought you'd get that right, too. You're really amazing, Woo-min says, his voice full of a mock admiration that makes Jae-hyun want to vomit. Jae-hyun's heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic rhythm of fear and fury. The truth is even more horrific than he imagined. He looks at Woo-min, his eyes burning with a cold, intense fire that refuses to be extinguished. I really don't understand, Jae-hyun says, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. The father has his wife killed, and then his son. The words are a heavy, suffocating weight in the air. Woo-min raises his hand again, the golden lightning crackling with a renewed, terrifying intensity. It's baffling, isn't it? He asks, his eyes glowing with a manic, unnatural light. He looks at Jae-hyun, his expression one of pure, unadulterated joy at the suffering he's causing. Don't you think so too, Hyung? He asks, his voice a soft, deadly whisper. He unleashes a massive blast of lightning, the golden energy tearing through the air like a physical force. Well, that's what happened. Goodbye, Hyung, Woo-min says, his voice full of a final, chilling finality. Jae-hyun stands his ground, his eyes fixed on the approaching wall of energy, refusing to blink. He thinks of the mythic item in his possession, the power he's been too afraid to even touch. He closes his eyes, a silent, desperate prayer escaping his lips as the light consumes him. Suddenly, the air around him begins to shimmer with a pale, ethereal light that defies the darkness. A blue notification window flashes open in front of him, the text stable and clear amidst the chaos. The Acer system is back online, its power surging through his body like a tidal wave. He can feel the mana flowing through his veins, a powerful, ancient energy that feels entirely alien to his D-rank body. The lightning blast hits him, but instead of shattering his bones, it's absorbed into the brilliant light. Woo-min's eyes widen in absolute shock, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. "What? Do you have something to?" he starts to ask, his voice trailing off into a whisper of confusion. He watches as Jae-hyun stands completely unharmed, the golden energy swirling around him like a protective, divine cloak. Jae-hyun opens his eyes, his amber gaze fixed on Woo-min with a terrifying intensity. YK. A massive explosion of mana erupts from Jae-hyun, the force of it pushing Woo-min back several feet. The ground beneath Jae-hyun's feet cracks and shatters, the sheer power of his presence too much for the dungeon to contain. Woo-min stares at him in awe and terror. "What is this magic?" he gasps, his voice full of a new, visceral fear. The darkness of the dungeon is pushed back by the brilliant, golden light radiating from Jae-hyun's body. He takes a slow, deliberate step forward, his boots crunching on the shattered stone like a harbinger of doom. YK. Another wave of mana pulses from him, the energy vibrating in the very air and making the walls tremble. Woo-min recoils, his face pale and his eyes wide with a fear he's never known. "The mana is getting even more powerful," he whispers, his voice trembling with every word. "What's happening right now?" he asks, his mind unable to process the transformation he's witnessing. Jae-hyun looks at him, his expression one of cold, calculated fury that makes Woo-min's blood run cold. Something feels off, Jae-hyun thinks, his mind finally clear and focused. "I should end this quickly," he decides, his voice a low, dangerous growl. He raises his hand, and the golden light begins to coalesce into a brilliant, pulsing sphere of energy. "Our play ends here," he says, his voice echoing through the chamber like a final judgment. He unleashes the energy, a massive beam of golden light that tears through the air with a roar. "Now, please die this time," he says, his voice full of a chilling, absolute finality. Woo-min barely manages to raise a magical shield, but the golden light shatters it like thin glass. He's thrown back against the wall, his body battered and broken by the sheer force of the impact. He looks up at Jae-hyun with a look of pure, unadulterated terror, his arrogance finally shattered. Jae-hyun stands over him, the golden light slowly fading, leaving only the cold, hard reality of the dungeon. He looks down at Woo-min, his eyes full of a deep, visceral contempt. "Jong Woo-min," he says, his voice a low, dangerous growl that promises more pain to come. A new notification flashes in front of him, the text glowing with a brilliant, blue light that illuminates the darkness. The effect of Odin's lost eye has been activated, it informs him, the words a promise of ultimate power. A blank card has been used, it adds, the final piece of the puzzle falling into place. Jae-hyun looks at Woo-min, a small, cold smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I'll kill you as painfully as possible," he promises, his voice full of a new, terrifying strength. Woo-min stares at him, his eyes wide with a shock that has replaced his fear. The item Odin's lost eye has been equipped, the system confirms, the words echoing in Jae-hyun's mind. The item has been bound to the user, it adds, the finality of the bond sinking into his soul. Jae-hyun looks at the golden eye in his hand, the divine light reflecting in his amber eyes with a haunting beauty. "I know, I can't sell you anymore," he whispers, the dream of a quiet life fading away. But he doesn't care anymore. The power he feels is worth more than any amount of gold. There is a blank card that can be used, the system informs him, a new possibility opening up. Woo-min's jaw drops in absolute disbelief. "That's impossible," he screams, his voice cracking with desperation. He watches as his own magic begins to disperse, the golden lightning fading into nothingness before it can reach Jae-hyun. "My magic, dispersed?" he gasps, his voice full of a deep, visceral shock. Jae-hyun takes another step forward, his presence more dominating and terrifying than ever before. "Jong Woo-min," he says, his voice echoing through the chamber like a death knell. Copying the active skill lightning chain, the system informs him, the words a death sentence for the magician. Jae-hyun raises his hand, and sparks of golden lightning begin to dance between his fingers, a perfect replica of Woo-min's own power. Woo-min stares at him in absolute horror. "How are you able to use lightning chain?" he stammers, his mind reeling. "It took me several years to learn that magic," he adds, his voice full of a new, terrifying realization. "So how is a mere D-rank warrior able to use it?" he asks, his eyes searching for an answer that isn't there. Jae-hyun looks at him, his expression one of cold, calculated fury. I don't know how you can use such a high-level spell, Woo-min continues, his voice trembling. But do you think you can win against me with just that? He asks, his voice full of a desperate, false confidence. Jae-hyun's smile widens, revealing a row of perfectly white, predatory teeth. I don't know, he says, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. But we'll find out, he adds, his voice full of a new, terrifying strength that makes the very air vibrate. He unleashes the lightning chain, the golden energy tearing through the air with a roar that drowns out Woo-min's screams. Woo-min barely manages to dive out of the way, the lightning striking the ground where he was standing just a second ago. He rolls across the floor, his armor clattering and his breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. He looks up, his vision blurred by smoke and blood, seeing Jae-hyun standing in the center of the chamber like a god of destruction. Ugh! Woo-min groans, his body battered and broken by the force of the attack. Jae-hyun stands over him, the golden light slowly fading, leaving only the cold, hard reality of the dungeon. He looks down at Woo-min, his eyes full of a deep, visceral contempt. Jong Woo-min, he says, his voice a low, dangerous growl. He raises his hand again, the golden lightning crackling with a renewed, terrifying intensity. Chae-ke, he screams as he unleashes another barrage of lightning bolts that arc through the air like golden serpents. Woo-min is thrown back against the wall, his body shattered and his spirit broken by the force of the attack. He slides to the floor, his eyes wide with a shock that has finally replaced his arrogance. Jae-hyun walks toward him, his boots clicking rhythmically on the hard ground, a countdown to the end. He stops just a few feet away, his eyes glowing with a faint, unnatural light that speaks of immense power. He looks down at Woo-min, his expression one of pure, unadulterated joy at the reversal of their fates. He raises his hand, and a massive sphere of golden energy begins to form above his head, pulsing with a terrifying power. Kwaang! The explosion rocks the entire dungeon, the sound of crumbling stone and dying screams filling the air. Jae-hyun stands in the center of the destruction, his amber eyes fixed on the dying embers of the fire. A final notification flashes in front of him, active skill, universal derivation, has been activated. The hunt has just begun. Suddenly, the shadows are torn apart by a violent eruption of golden energy. Serpentine chains of lightning lash out, weaving through the air like hungry predators. These aren't ordinary magical constructs, they are manifestations of a mythic force, crackling with enough intensity to melt the stone floor. The chains coil and strike, illuminating the cavern in a blinding strobe of amber and white. The roar of the electricity drowns out the distant screams of the dying, focusing all the world's fury into this single, narrow corridor. A massive spearhead of concentrated lightning forms at the tip of the energy surge, pointed directly at the heart of the enemy. It hums with a frequency that makes the teeth ache, a weapon forged from raw mana and desperation. The spear pulses, growing larger and more unstable with every passing microsecond, drawing in the surrounding heat until the air itself begins to singe. This is the pinnacle of Jae-hyun's hidden potential, a strike meant to bridge the impossible gap between a D-rank and an A-rank monster. The spearhead rotates with a mechanical precision, its golden surface rippling with internal currents of power. It looks less like a spell and more like a divine judgment, a physical weight that anchors Jae-hyun to the ground even as it threatens to fly forward and erase everything in its path. The light is so intense that it casts long, distorted shadows against the jagged cave walls, turning the dungeon into a theater of golden fire. The spear begins to spin, creating a vortex of energy that pulls in loose debris and smoke. The sound transitions from a crackle to a high-pitched scream of tearing reality. It is a beautiful, terrifying sight, the moment a cornered prey finally reveals its hidden fangs. Jong Woo-min stands frozen, the brilliant light reflecting off his glasses and hiding his eyes. His jaw is set in a hard line, his usual mask of smug superiority finally cracking under the pressure of the impossible. He raises a hand as if to ward off the coming storm, but his fingers tremble. The sheer volume of mana radiating from Jae-hyun is suffocating, a weight that Woo-min, despite his A-rank status, has never felt before. He realizes in this instant that he has catastrophically underestimated the man he called Hyung. His face contorts into a snarl of pure rage and disbelief. Damn it, he hisses, the words barely audible over the thundering magic. The frustration is visible in the way his brow furrows and his teeth grind together. He has spent his entire life climbing to the top 2% of the world, yet here is a useless D-rank warrior wielding a power that defies the very logic of the Acer system. The humiliation of being forced onto the defensive by a weakling burns hotter than the lightning itself. In response to the golden threat, a massive blue magic circle erupts beneath Jae-hyun's feet. It is a complex web of geometric patterns and ancient script, glowing with a serene but powerful azure light. This is the countermeasure, a defensive barrier or perhaps a secondary activation of the mythic item. The blue light clashes with the golden lightning, creating a chaotic aurora of colors that swirls around Jae-hyun like a protective cocoon. The runes within the circle spin rapidly, calculating and adapting to the incoming threat. Jae-hyun reaches out, his hands steady despite the carnage. He looks like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. The blue mana flows up his arm, merging with the golden sparks to create a unique, shimmering aura. He is no longer just a victim. He is the master of a variable that shouldn't exist. The power shift is absolute, turning the dark, damp dungeon into a sanctum of overwhelming magical pressure. The darkness returns for a split second, a heavy, suffocating void that swallows the light. Then, a single, massive eye appears in the gloom, the absolute eye of God. It glows with a terrifying, golden intensity, its pupil a vertical slit that seems to see through the very fabric of time and space. This is the true form of the mythic item, a relic of a forgotten age that has finally chosen its host. The eye doesn't just look, it judges, stripping away the illusions of the world to reveal the raw truth beneath. The system notification flashes again, more urgent this time. It confirms that the absolute eye of God has been fully integrated. The text is stable, a stark contrast to the flickering chaos of the battle. Jae-hyun can feel the eye's gaze within his own mind, a cold, analytical presence that maps out every weakness in woman's defense. The power is intoxicating, but it comes with a heavy price, a weight on his soul that feels like it could crush him at any moment. Blue sparks dance across Jae-hyun's vision as he stares down his opponent. His amber eyes are wide, glowing with the reflected light of the system and the mythic artifact. He looks less like a human and more like a vessel for something divine and dangerous. The air around him is thick with the smell of ozone and burnt stone, a testament to the sheer volume of energy he is currently channeling through his D-rank body. Woo-min's eyes widen to the point of tearing. The reflection in his glasses shows the golden spear growing closer, a harbinger of his own demise. The terror is finally real, a cold hand gripping his heart. He tries to speak, to cast a counterspell, but the words die in his throat. The A-rank magician, the celebrity hero, the cold-blooded assassin, all of those titles mean nothing in the face of the absolute reality Jae-hyun has unleashed. The golden spear lunges forward, a streak of light that leaves a trail of scorched air in its wake. It moves with a speed that defies the eye, a physical manifestation of Jae-hyun's will to survive. The impact is inevitable, a collision of two worlds that can only end in total destruction. Jae-hyun watches it go, his face a mask of grim determination, knowing that this single strike will decide the fate of everyone in this dungeon. I can't dodge, the thought flashes through the mind of the target, a final realization of mortality. The spear is too fast, too large, and too precise. It fills the entire field of vision, a wall of golden fire that promises only oblivion. There is no room for escape, no time for a shield. The arrogance of the strong has finally met the desperation of the weak, and the result is a blinding flash of white light. The explosion rocks the dungeon to its foundations. Stone pillars shatter like glass, and the ceiling groans under the pressure of the magical shockwave. A pillar of fire and lightning erupts upward, tearing through the layers of the earth. The sound is deafening, a roar that echoes through the hollow chambers of the Meteor Guild's final stand. For a moment, everything is lost in a sea of gold and orange, a chaotic inferno that consumes the shadows. Dust and debris rain down as the light slowly begins to fade. The air is thick with a gray haze, making it impossible to see more than a few feet. The silence that follows is even more terrifying than the explosion, a heavy, expectant quiet that hangs over the ruins. The only sound is the occasional clatter of a falling stone or the hiss of cooling magic. Jae-hyun stands in the center of the crater, his breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. He is covered in soot and blood, his armor cracked and useless. He looks down at his hands, which are still trembling from the aftershocks of the mana surge. He has survived, but the cost is visible in every line of his exhausted body. He is a man who has looked into the abyss and forced it to blink. A few feet away, a broken figure lies amidst the rubble. It is Woo-min, his expensive clothes torn to rags and his glasses shattered on the ground. He is unrecognizable, a heap of bruised flesh and broken pride. The A-rank magician who moved with such casual grace is now reduced to a crawling wreck, his fingers clawing at the dirt in a desperate attempt to find purchase. He is the living embodiment of a fallen god. Woo-min's hand, bloodied and shaking, reaches out toward his broken glasses. He lets out a weak, guttural groan, a sound of pure agony. Ugh, ugh. The sounds are pathetic, stripped of all the mocking arrogance he displayed just minutes ago. He is no longer the predator, he is the prey, broken and bleeding in the dark. The sight is a grim reminder of how quickly the scales of power can tip in this lawless world. Jae-hyun takes a slow, deliberate step forward. His boots crunch on the shattered stone, a rhythmic sound that counts down the final seconds of the encounter. He looks down at Woo-min with a mixture of contempt and cold finality. There is no pity in his gaze, only the memory of his fallen comrades and the betrayal that led them here. He is the judge, the jury, and now, the executioner. Woo-min begins to cough, a wet, hacking sound that brings up mouthfuls of crimson blood. He collapses back onto the ground, his strength completely spent. The light in his eyes is fading, replaced by the dull glaze of shock. He looks up at Jae-hyun, his vision likely blurred and failing, seeing only the silhouette of the man he tried to murder standing over him like a god of vengeance. He tries to form words, his lips moving soundlessly at first. A single tear tracks through the soot on his face, a rare sign of human emotion from a man who made a business out of slaughter. Don't, he whispers, the word barely a breath. Don't kill, the plea is cut short by another fit of coughing. It is a desperate, shameful request for a mercy he never showed to the Meteor Guild. Jae-hyun doesn't hesitate. He raises his hand one last time, the golden lightning crackling between his fingers with a renewed, focused intensity. He doesn't need a massive spear this time, a single, precise bolt is enough. He looks Wu Min in the eye, ensuring that the assassin's last sight is the very power he mocked. The lightning strikes with a sharp chaike, a final note of discord in the dungeon's symphony of death. The body falls still. The golden light flickers out, leaving Jae-hyun alone in the smoky twilight. He stands there for a long time, the weight of the kill settling into his bones. He has won, but he feels no triumph, only a hollow, aching exhaustion. The adrenaline is fading, leaving behind the cold reality of his own injuries. He begins to sway, his legs buckling under the weight of his spent mana. Is everything over? He wonders, his voice a raspy whisper that is swallowed by the shadows. He collapses to the floor, his body hitting the stone with a heavy thud. He lies there, staring up at the dark ceiling, his vision beginning to tunnel. The silence of the dungeon is absolute now, a tomb for the Meteor Guild and the assassins who hunted them. Jae-hyun's eyes begin to close, his consciousness slipping away into the dark. He thinks of his life, 17 years of struggling as an average raider, only to end up here, dying in a hole with a mythic item he barely understands. My stamina, my magic, nothing is left in my body, he reflects, the thoughts slow and heavy. The cold is the worst part, a deep, bone-chilling frost that starts at his fingertips and moves toward his heart. He thinks of the artifact, the Odin's lost eye, that he worked so hard to obtain. I only just got a mythic item. He laments, a bitter irony that tastes like blood in his mouth. To find the ultimate treasure only to die before he can even use it to change his life. It is a tragedy that feels almost scripted. The darkness is complete now, yet I'm about to die in vain like this, he thinks, his heart slowing to a crawl. He remembers the faces of those he couldn't save, the dreams he had of a quiet life, and the father who wished for his death. It all feels so distant now, like a story told about someone else. The cold is no longer painful, it is a numbing embrace that promises rest. No wonder my luck was acting up today, he muses with a final, fading spark of humor. The world disappears into a void of pure black. There is no sound, no heat, no pain. Just the empty space between life and whatever comes next. It is the end of Min Jae-hyun, the D-rank warrior who tried to be more than the world allowed. But then, something changes. A pinprick of light appears in the center of the void, a blue spark that refuses to be extinguished. It grows, expanding into a complex grid of light and data. A new notification window flashes open, its text stable and clear even in the afterlife. A new operating system has been downloaded, it announces. The blue light is different from the Acer system, it is deeper, more ancient. Would you like to run it? The system asks, a digital invitation to a second chance. Jae-hyun's fading consciousness latches onto the words. He sees the prompt hanging in the darkness, a lifeline thrown into the abyss. He doesn't understand what it means, but he knows that no means death. With the last shred of his will, he reaches out toward the yes button. The system responds instantly, the blue light turning into a blinding white flash that consumes the void. Once the new operating system is run, time will be regressed to the period the user most desires, the system informs him. The word regression hangs in the air, a concept so powerful it makes the very fabric of reality tremble. Jae-hyun feels a sudden, violent pull, as if his soul is being yanked through a narrow straw. The cold is replaced by a searing heat, and the darkness is torn apart by a kaleidoscope of memories. You're going to save me? He asks the system, his voice echoing in the white space. He thinks of his mother, of the mistakes he made, and the people he lost. If he can go back, if he can change everything, he will become a monster to protect what he loves. Another variable has come to me, he realizes, the weight of the future settling onto his shoulders. He doesn't know if this path leads to happiness or tragedy, but he is willing to walk it. All right, run it, he commands, his voice firm and clear for the first time. The white light explodes, and the world dissolves into a sea of red and black data streams. The Vnorner system is activated, overriding the laws of the Acer. Jae-hyun feels his body being reconstructed, his mana being refilled, and his memories being locked into place. The regression has begun, a journey back through the stream of time to a moment before everything went wrong. A vision of three divine figures appears in the light, the Norns, the weavers of fate. They stand amidst a golden radiance, their faces hidden behind blindfolds. They are the architects of this new system, the ones who have chosen Jae-hyun to be their adversary against the high and mighty Acer. One of them reaches out, her hand glowing with a soft, ethereal light. She places a bracelet of woven vines and light onto a hand, a symbol of the bond between the gods and their chosen champion. The runes for adversary and god flash across the screen, marking Jae-hyun as something more than human. He is now one watched by the gods, a title that carries both immense power and terrifying danger. The system confirms the acquisition of the absolute eye of God as a permanent passive skill. The gods who oppose the Acer are now his patrons, and their eyes are fixed firmly upon him. Suddenly, Jae-hyun bolts upright with with a violent huek. He is gasping for air, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He is no longer in the cold, dark dungeon. He is lying in a soft bed, the morning sun streaming through a nearby window. He looks around in a daze, his eyes wide with shock. The air smells of laundry detergent and home-cooked food, a sensory overload that makes his head spin. He is back. He looks at his hands, they are smaller, smoother, free of the scars and calluses of 17 years of raiding. He is in his old house, the one he lost years ago. He touches the blanket, feeling the familiar texture of the fabric. What's going on? He whispers, his voice higher and younger than he remembers. He looks at a framed photo on the nightstand, seeing a younger version of himself standing next to a woman with a kind, radiant smile. His mother. Tears begin to well up in his eyes as the reality of the situation sinks in. He looks at his palms, seeing the faint, shimmering outline of the Nornir system's interface. A golden orb of light pulses between his hands, a physical manifestation of the regression success. The system confirms the date, November 15, 2020. He has returned to his third year of middle school, 11 years before his death in the dungeon. He is 16 years old again, with a lifetime of knowledge and a mythic system at his fingertips. He wonders if he is dreaming, if this is just a cruel hallucination born of his dying mind. He thinks of the funeral, the black clothes, and the cold weight of the earth. No, this is just a dream, he tells himself, even as he feels the warmth of the sun on his skin. But the system notifications are too real, the details of the room too sharp. He sees his mother in the hallway, her hair catching the light as she moves. She is alive. She is really alive. Jae-hyun can't contain himself. He lunges forward, throwing his arms around her in a desperate, crushing hug. He buries his face in her shoulder, sobbing with a violence that shakes his entire frame. A long dream that I never wish to wake up from, he thinks, the scent of her perfume bringing back a flood of memories. He holds her as if she might disappear if he lets go, his tears soaking into her shirt. His mother is startled, her hands hovering in the air before she gently pats his back. She doesn't understand why her muted son is suddenly acting this way, but she offers him the comfort he so desperately needs. Jae-hyun eventually pulls back, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. He feels a sense of peace he hasn't known in over a decade. But the system doesn't let him rest for long. A new notification informs him that his body has recovered to 20% and that the limitations on non-combat activities have been removed. He realizes that even in this peaceful time, he is still a player in a very dangerous game. A subquest appears, Rest is the mother of success. It tasks him with recovering his health to 80%, offering a blank card as a reward. Jae-hyun lets out a long, shaky breath. He needs to start from the beginning, to organize his thoughts and plan his next moves. He didn't die fighting Wu Min. He regressed because of the Nornir system. His mind is already conditioned to the world of Yggdrasil and monsters, giving him an edge that no one else in this time period possesses. He knows that adapting and judging the situation quickly is his absolute priority. If the system is right, he has 11 years to prepare for the apocalypse. He sits at his desk, looking at a calendar. He sees a note he wrote to himself, write the application for Milla's Academy. PS be a combat class no matter what. He picks up a pen and, with a steady hand, crosses out the second part. In his past life, he was a warrior, a D-rank meat shield who died in the dark. He won't make that mistake again. I will be a magician in this life, he vows, his eyes glowing with a new, fiery determination. The title, I obtained a mythic item, flashes across his vision, a reminder of the power he now holds. He goes to the kitchen and starts eating breakfast with his mother. The simple act of eating rice and soup feels like a miracle. His mother watches him, her eyes full of concern. Does he have something worrying him lately? She wonders. She notices the way he looks at her, as if he's seeing a ghost. When he finishes, he hugs her again, a silent promise to never let her go this time. His mother is confused but supportive. She tells him that he's free to do as he wants, whether it's magic or something else. She promises to always support him as his mom. Jae-hyun feels a lump form in his throat. Now isn't the time to cry, he tells himself, hardening his resolve. He thinks of his father, the A-rank raider who had his own family killed for profit. In order to take vengeance against father, I have to become much stronger. The path ahead is clear, and it is paved with the blood of his enemies. He completes the rest quest and receives another blank card. He spends the next few days training, his young body quickly responding to the exercises. He stands in his room, shirtless and sweating, his muscles already showing the definition of a seasoned fighter. He has future knowledge of hidden pieces and ruins that he can monopolize. He has a good memory, one that served him well as a dungeon navigator. The only problem is his skills. Aside from lightning chain and universal derivation, all he has are warrior class skills. He sits in his chair, looking at his status window. His level is back to 7, and his stats have been reset, but he has 21 stat points to distribute. He notices something strange. His passive skills, One Watched by the Gods and Absolute Eye of God, are both at max rank. The system explains that through the first skill, all passive skills prior to regression have been retained. This is a game changer. One watched by the gods is an EX rank skill that raises all stats by 1 every time he levels up. Absolute Eye of God allows him to see through illusions and perceive absolute reality. He also has Lightning Chain at A rank, a high-level spell that usually takes years to master. He realizes that even at level 7, he is already more powerful than most veteran raiders. He looks at the Absolute Eye of God skill, wondering what its true potential is. Jaehyun's gaze remains fixed on the translucent blue screens floating in the air before him, his mind racing as he analyzes the tools now at his disposal. He stares at the description for the Absolute Eye of God, a skill that promises to pierce through any deception, yet its true depth remains a mystery to him. Beside it, the lightning chain icon crackles with a faint, static energy, a reminder of the lethal power he managed to seize from his betrayer. He knows that having a high-rank offensive spell is a massive advantage, but magic alone won't be enough to survive the trials ahead. He shifts his focus to his personal profile, where the numbers tell a stark story of a fresh start. At 16 years old and only level 7, his physical stats are abysmal. His strength sits at a meager 4, his dexterity at a pathetic 2, and his endurance at 5. Only his magic stat, boosted to 10, shows any promise. With 21 unallocated stat points burning a hole in his status window, he knows this is the moment that will define his new path. He leans back, his eyes narrowing as he weighs his options. In his past life, he threw everything into strength and speed, but as a magician, the rules have changed. He realizes that while strength is no longer his primary concern, he can't afford to be a glass cannon. Without at least some dexterity, he'll be nothing more than a stationary target for any monster fast enough to close the gap. He needs to be able to dodge, to move with a fluidity that keeps him out of harm's reach while he incants his spells. Magic is the obvious priority, the fuel for his new existence, but his eyes keep drifting back to the endurance stat. He watches as the system interface shimmers, his finger hovering over the virtual buttons. He makes his decision, and the notifications begin to chime in rapid succession. His dexterity ticks up by 2 points, a subtle shift that he feels in the way his muscles tension. Then, he pours 5 points into magic, feeling the well of mana within his soul expand and deepen. But the biggest change comes next. He dumps the remaining 14 points into endurance, watching the number surge upward. To most, this would seem like a waste, but Jaehyun knows better. Endurance isn't just about taking a hit, it's the foundation of growth. It reduces the grueling fatigue that comes from repetitive training in constant battle. By specializing in endurance now, he's ensuring that he can train harder and longer than anyone else, creating a snowball effect that will eventually leave his peers in the dust. He raises his hand, watching the faint red particles of mana dissipate into the air as the allocation completes. He feels a sense of grim satisfaction. Priority 1 is handled. Now, his attention turns to the dark, ornate card held between his fingers. This blank card is a variable, a chance to acquire a skill that shouldn't belong to him yet. He knows exactly what he needs. Offensive magic is covered by the lightning chain, and his mana pool is still too shallow to support high-rank destructive spells anyway. What he needs is a safety net. He needs a way to stay in the fight when things go south. He needs a healing spell. His mind drifts back to the history of this era, the year 2020. It was a time of transition and prejudice. He remembers the way magicians were looked down upon, treated like second-class citizens compared to the glorious warrior classes who stood on the front lines with their swords and shields. Magicians were seen as fragile, their casting times too long and their utility too limited. They were treated like garbage, often relegated to support roles or ignored entirely. However, there was one glaring exception to this rule. Raiders with healing skills were the undisputed nobility of the awakened world. It didn't matter where they went or what guild they belonged to, a healer was a treasure to be guarded at all costs. Even if they never stepped foot inside a dungeon, their skills were in high demand in the medical field, earning them wealth and status that warriors could only dream of. Jaehyun looks at the card again, a cold light in his amber eyes. If he starts his journey with a healing skill, he won't just be powerful, he'll be untouchable. He won't be looked down on by the arrogant elites who think they run the world. But there's a catch. Finding an awakened with a high-level healing skill to copy isn't like finding a warrior in a tavern. They are rare, guarded, and often hidden away by the major guilds. He thinks back to Wu Min, the man who murdered him. That betrayal was a bitter lesson in the value of efficiency. Moving forward, he can't afford to waste a single blank card on a mediocre ability. He needs to aim for the pinnacle. He sighs, leaning his head back against his chair as he stares at the ceiling, the weight of his memories pressing down on him. He knows the system won't just hand him a truckload of mythic items or game-breaking cards. He has to find the opportunities himself. Suddenly, the silence of his room is broken by the sharp vibration of his phone on the desk. He blinks, pulled out of his dark thoughts, and reaches for the device. He checks the screen, and a name pops up that sends a jolt through his heart. Kim Yu-young. He stares at the name for a long moment, his breath hitching. Kim Yu-young was his childhood friend, the girl who lived just down the street. They were inseparable, growing up together and sharing the same dream of attending the prestigious Mila's Academy. He remembers her bright smile and her boundless energy, a stark contrast to his own muted personality. In his past life, she was his anchor, the one person who truly understood him. But the memory shifts, turning dark and crimson. He sees her face again, but this time it's covered in blood, her eyes dull and lifeless as she collapses in the middle of a chaotic battlefield. The pain of that loss was a wound that never truly healed, a failure that haunted him until his own death. He winces, covering his eyes with his hand as the phantom scent of ozone and blood fills his nostrils. It's fine, he tells himself, forcing his breathing to steady. He can change things now. He has to. He looks back at the phone, a small, genuine smile finally touching his lips. She's just how he remembers her, loud, persistent, and completely oblivious to the darkness he's carrying. He opens the chat, reading through her rapid-fire messages. She's using her typical yo-yo-yo greeting, demanding to know what he's doing. She tells him that the saintess, Yu Sung-un, is coming to give a lecture downtown and insists that he come with her. Jae-hyun's eyes widen as he reads the name. Yu Sung-un, the saintess of Korea, the guildmaster of the Manhwa Guild. She was a legend, a top-rated healer whose fame extended far beyond the borders of the country. In a time when being a raider was still a terrifying and uncommon profession, she was the one who stood up to protect the citizens when no one else would. But Jae-hyun knows the secret she's hiding, a secret that eventually led to her downfall. Her signature healing spell, Sacrifice, was as literal as its name. Every time she used it to save a life, it ate away at her own vitality, consuming her life force to mend the wounds of others. He looks at the image of the saintess in his mind, a woman of divine beauty and tragic resolve. He realizes that this is the opportunity he was looking for. If he can get close to her, if he can use his system to copy Sacrifice, he'll gain the ultimate healing tool. More than that, he might be able to save the woman who spent her life saving everyone else. He stands up, grabbing his hoodie and heading for the door. He calls out to his mother, telling her he's going out for a bit. Her voice drifts back from the kitchen, warm and familiar, telling him not to be too late. He pauses for a second, soaking in the normalcy of it all, before stepping out into the sunlight. He sends a quick reply to Yu-young, "I'll be there in a zip." Meanwhile, across the city, a black luxury sedan glides through the streets. Inside the plush interior, Yu Sung-un sits silently, her eyes closed. Her assistant and head of security, Sung-jae, watches her through the rearview mirror with deep concern. He briefs her on her schedule, the lecture downtown, followed by a B-rank raid, and then an immediate flight to America for a station base inspection. It's an extreme schedule, one that would exhaust even the healthiest raider. He notes that she looks even paler than before, her skin almost translucent in the soft light. She dismisses his concern with a tired smile, claiming she's just a bit fatigued. But Sung-jae knows the truth. He knows that Sacrifice is killing her. He thinks to himself that they need another healer, someone on her level, so they can finally treat her and stop this slow suicide. But healers of that caliber don't just appear out of thin air. Sung-un opens her eyes, looking out the window as they approach the lecture site. She reminds Sung-jae that they agreed not to talk about her condition. She is the saintess, the symbol of hope for Korea, and she will continue to play her part until the very end. Sung-jae grips the steering wheel until his knuckles turn white, his heart heavy with the realization that at this rate, she will collapse before the year is out. The scene shifts to the bustling downtown area, where a massive crowd has gathered for the lecture. The air is thick with excitement and the chatter of thousands of fans. Jae-hyun stands in the middle of the throng, looking around with a sense of displacement. Suddenly, a hand grabs his arm and yanks him forward. It's Yu-young, her orange hair glowing in the sun as she drags him through the crowd. She's complaining about the number of people, her voice high and energetic. Jae-hyun tells her to stop dragging him, a hint of a smile on his face. He teases her, asking if she only invited him because she was worried about getting lost in the crowd. She flushes, turning away and telling him to stop assuming things, but she doesn't let go of his hand. Jae-hyun watches her, his expression softening. She's amazing at sports and academics, yet she's always causing a commotion because she can't find her way around a simple city block. She tells him he should be grateful, because thanks to her, he gets to see Yu Sung-un in person. Jae-hyun doesn't argue. She's right, though not for the reasons she thinks. As long as he can copy Sacrifice, this trip will be the turning point of his entire future. He might even be able to gain the greatest personal connection in all of South Korea. The crowd erupts into a deafening cheer as the saintess finally takes the stage. She stands before the microphone, a vision of grace and power in her dark robes. She begins her speech, her voice calm and resonant. She speaks of the unprecedented period of disaster the world is facing, of the appearance of monsters and the countless lives lost. She talks about the crossroads between life and death that humanity now stands upon. Jae-hyun watches her intently, his arms crossed. He knows what's coming. He knows that in 2 months, during the Itaewon dungeon raid, she will fall into a critical condition. The cause will be her own magic, the final toll of 1,000 sacrifices. He hears the crowd's inspired gasps as she calls for more awakened to become raiders, to have the courage to change the world. Yu-young is completely enthralled, her eyes shining with admiration. She whispers that Sung-un is such a good speaker, a true role model. Jae-hyun nods silently. He agrees that she's a hero, but he also knows the reality of the front lines. Most awakened don't want to be raiders. They don't want to risk their lives against monsters for a world that often treats them with suspicion. Even he, right before he regressed, just wanted to sell his items and live a quiet, leisurely life. He tells Yu-young he's going to head out first, claiming he has something urgent to do. She's shocked and annoyed, asking what she's supposed to do now. He smirks, reminding her that he already called her mom to come pick her up. She calls him the worst, a bully, but he just waves her off and disappears into the crowd. He has a different destination in mind. He makes his way to the back of the stage area, where the luxury cars are parked. He spots the black sedan and the tall, scarred figure of Sung-jae standing guard. Jae-hyun approaches with a confident stride, a sharp contrast to the nervous fans lingering in the distance. Sung-jae spots him immediately, his eyes narrowing. He steps forward to intercept, telling Jae-hyun that if he's a fan looking to give a gift, now isn't a good time. Jae-hyun doesn't stop. He looks Sung-jae straight in the eye and says he's here to meet Guildmaster Yu Sung-un. Sung-jae sighs, thinking it's just another crazy fan. He tells Jae-hyun to look around and realize how uncomfortable he's making everyone. But Jae-hyun's smile only widens. He leans in close to the guard and drops a bombshell that freezes the air between them. He tells Sung-jae that he knows the Guildmaster has an incurable illness. And more importantly, he knows how to cure it. Sung-jae's expression shifts from annoyance to pure, murderous rage in a split second. He lunges forward, grabbing Jae-hyun by the collar and slamming him back. His face is a mask of fury as he demands to know where Jae-hyun heard such a thing. He screams at the boy, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. Jae-hyun remains perfectly calm, his amber eyes cold and steady. He tells Sung-jae that yelling it out so loudly isn't going to help anyone. The commotion draws the attention of the people nearby, and the car door slowly opens. Yu Sung-un's voice drifts out, calm but authoritative. She tells Sung-jae to hold on for a second. She looks at Jae-hyun through the window, her gaze searching. She asks him if he can take responsibility for those words. Jae-hyun doesn't flinch. He smiles and says, "Of course. I can heal your illness, Guildmaster." The silence that follows is heavy with disbelief. Sung-jae looks like he's about to snap Jae-hyun's neck, but Sung-un intervenes again. She tells them to get in the car. They need to go somewhere quiet where there aren't so many eyes. A few minutes later, they are in a private, high-end room. Sung-un sits across from Jae-hyun, her expression unreadable. She asks him point-blank how he found out about her illness. Jae-hyun leans back, his face a mask of calculated mystery. He tells her he can't reveal his source, but he offers a warning. If he tells her, he won't heal her. Sung-un chuckles, a faint, tired sound. She calls him a bold kid. She decides to play along, asking him how he plans on healing an illness that the world's best doctors have given up on. Jae-hyun looks her in the eye, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. "To be honest with you, I plan on copying your sacrifice." Sung-un freezes, her eyes widening in absolute shock. Behind her, Sung-jae slams his hand onto the table, the wood cracking under the force. He's livid, calling Jae-hyun a liar. He explains the fundamental law of the awakened world: unique skills are just that, unique. They are obtained through hereditary succession or by a unique individual. There are no formulas, no way to memorize them, and absolutely no way to copy them. They are the ultimate monopoly of power. Jae-hyun just watches them, his expression unchanging. He knows the conventions of normal society don't apply to him anymore. He tells them to calm down, his voice steady and convincing. He tells them that if he couldn't do it, he wouldn't have risked coming here. Sung-un looks at him for a long time, the silence stretching until it's almost unbearable. Finally, a small, intrigued smile plays on her lips. She tells Sung-jae that it won't be too late to decide after hearing him out. She turns back to Jae-hyun, her eyes glowing with a new spark of hope. "So what you're saying is, you will heal me using my own sacrifice?" Jae-hyun nods, the hunt for his new life truly beginning now, truly beginning. Yu Sung-un leans in, a faint, intrigued smile playing on her lips as she repeats the impossible claim. He's going to heal her using her own sacrifice skill. Jae-hyun doesn't blink, his amber eyes locked onto hers as he gives a simple, chillingly confident confirmation. The logic is simple but brutal. To mend the damage caused by a skill's penalty, you need magic of the same rank or higher. But sacrifice is a unique skill, the pinnacle of power. Since nothing higher exists, the saintess is trapped, unable to use her own life-saving gift on herself. We see the weight of her power, a divine offering that mends others by devouring her own vitality. It's a literal death sentence she's been carrying alone. She stares at the boy, weighing his audacity against her desperation. Finally, she challenges him to prove the impossible. Her guard, Sung-jae, screams in protest, but the saintess has already made her choice. Brilliant light erupts from her as she manifests her essence. Jae-hyun watches the golden particles dance in the air, his hand steady as he raises the dark, ornate card. The system hums with anticipation, sensing the legendary power ripe for the taking. Blue windows flash before his eyes, asking for confirmation. With a mental command, he registers the skill. The blank card shimmers and transforms, locking the saintess's life force magic into his own arsenal. Jae-hyun notices the lingering doubt in her eyes. He knows words aren't enough for a woman who has seen everything. He activates the skill immediately. A warm, blinding sphere of light gathers in his palm, the exact same divine energy that once belonged only to her. The room falls into a deathly silence as the saintess and her guard freeze in pure shock. Jae-hyun clenches his fist, the power crackling between his fingers. With a sharp, dominant smirk, he asks the only question that matters: shall we start the negotiations now? We are immediately met with a glowing, amber-hued system interface detailing a power that defies the natural order of this world. It is an active skill known as Sacrifice, and its rank is nothing less than unique. The screen explains its dual nature. It can create a massive wave of healing to restore the vitality and status of allies, but when turned against the undead, it transforms into a devastating attack called Light's Judgment. This is the pinnacle of recovery magic, a skill so rare that it usually comes with a price too heavy for any mortal to pay. However, a crucial note flashes at the bottom of the interface, changing everything. Because this skill was copied using a blank card, the standard penalty, the literal sacrifice of a user's life force, does not apply. Jae-hyun stands there with a sharp, knowing smirk playing on his lips, his amber eyes glowing with the satisfaction of a man who has just cheated fate. He looks down at the translucent screen hovering before him, the digital particles shimmering against his dark hoodie. He knows he holds a nuclear option in the palm of his hand. He looks toward the woman across from him, his expression calm and calculated. Yu Sung-un, the powerful guildmaster of the Yanoa Guild, watches him with a mixture of curiosity and growing respect. She leans forward slightly, her elegant features illuminated by the soft light of the room. She asks him directly what he wants from her guild, her voice steady but laced with intrigue. Jae-hyun doesn't hesitate. He knows that the mere fact he can cure her terminal illness is a bargaining chip worth more than gold. It is the ultimate leverage, and he intends to use it to its full potential. Sung-un's eyes narrow slightly as she processes his confidence. To her, the fact that this boy might be the only person on the planet capable of saving her life is enough to make her willing to negotiate on almost any terms. She looks at him, really looking at him this time, and notes that despite his incredible claims, he looks like a boy who has only just started high school. It's a jarring contrast, the face of a child paired with the strategic mind of a veteran raider. She finds it hard to believe that someone so young is standing in front of the master of the nation's #1 guild, suggesting negotiations without a single tremor in his voice. A small, genuine smile touches her lips as she thinks to herself how incredibly interesting this situation has become. Jae-hyun maintains his composure, his gaze level and unafraid. He makes his request clear. He wants her to become his sponsor. He explains that he needs her help to grow as a raider, a request that catches her slightly off guard. She repeats the word sponsor, as if tasting it, her hand moving to her chin in a thoughtful gesture. She asks if he means he wants her to fund his growth and provide the resources necessary for his ascension. Jae-hyun nods, his smile widening just a fraction. He admits that he has large dreams, but he's realistic enough to know that talent alone isn't enough. To truly reach the top, he needs money, connections, and the backing of a powerhouse. He tells her plainly that he wants the Yanoa Guild to support him during this critical phase of his development. Sung-un closes her eyes for a moment, a soft "alright" escaping her lips. She looks back at him with a gaze that is both predatory and appreciative. She tells him that if he has the guts to walk into her office and demand something like this, then he is certainly worth the investment. She acknowledges his talent, but her expression shifts, becoming more serious. She tells him there is a condition. Jae-hyun's eyes sharpen. He expected this. He knows that in the world of high-ranking raiders, nothing is ever truly free. He thinks to himself that even though she is likely desperate for a cure, she hasn't lost her cool for a single second. He wonders if this unshakable calm is simply the mark of a true guildmaster. Sung-un watches him, her smile returning but with a sharper edge. She asks him if he has a guild he wishes to join in the future. Jae-hyun is momentarily stunned, a drop of sweat trickling down his temple as he realizes what she's doing. He thinks to himself, is she trying to scout me right now? He asks her if she's serious, his voice betraying a hint of his surprise. She laughs softly, telling him that she isn't the type of person to joke about something as important as recruitment. She explains that there are several reasons why she's making this offer. First, she points out the fact that he discovered her secret illness, classified information that only a handful of people in the entire world are aware of. The fact that he uncovered it suggests that his investigative abilities are far beyond his years. Jae-hyun remains silent, thinking about the truth he can never tell her, that he knows this because he has returned from a future where her death was common knowledge. He knows he can't reveal his regression here. Sung-eun continues, holding up a second finger. She points out that he copied her unique skill, sacrifice, perfectly. She admits that she has never heard of anyone being able to copy a skill of that rank before. She tells him to imagine the possibilities if he can continue to copy skills like that in the future. To her, his potential is quite literally endless. Jae-hyun looks at her, his mind racing. He asks if there is a third reason. Sung-eun leans in closer, her hand reaching out to gently lift his chin, forcing him to look her directly in the eyes. She tells him that the third reason is the most important. Despite standing directly in front of one of the most powerful women in the world, he hasn't shown a single ounce of nervousness. She finds a child who can maintain his composure in her presence to be incredibly appealing. She asks him again, how about it? She wants to know if this is enough of a reason for him to join her. Jae-hyun looks away for a moment, his mind weighing the offer. He knows that the Yanhwa Guild is currently the undisputed #1, but he also remembers the future where it collapsed shortly after Sung-eun fell into critical condition. He realizes that if he joins now, he will be treated with immense respect and given every resource he needs to grow. However, he also knows the legalities. He asks her if it isn't illegal to make a contract between a guild and a student who isn't yet a legal adult. Sung-eun smirks, her eyes dancing with amusement. She asks if he's ever heard of priority negotiation rights. Jae-hyun's eyes widen as he recognizes the term. He knows that this is a special right guilds use to support the growth of promising cadets who aren't yet of age. Once those cadets become adults, the guild that supported them gets the first chance to sign them to a full contract. Normally, this is an offer reserved only for genius-ranked monsters, the absolute elite of the elite. Jae-hyun is floored. Before he regressed, he was a nobody who was refused admittance into even the lowest-ranked guilds. To receive an offer like this from the top guild in the country is a complete reversal of his previous life. Sung-eun watches his reaction, thinking to herself that he has a childlike side that is actually quite cute. She tells him that she will send the contract to his house once he provides his address, and urges him to consider it carefully. Jae-hyun takes a deep breath and stands up, telling her that they should focus on the healing first. He knows this is a golden opportunity, but he doesn't want to rush into a decision. He tells himself that he can consider his next step later. He steps toward her, his hands beginning to glow with a soft, golden light. He tells her he's going to start the process now. Sung-eun closes her eyes and tells him to proceed. In the corner of the room, her guard, Sung-jae, watches with a look of pure bewilderment. He can't follow what's happening, his mind reeling from the speed at which this boy has taken control of the room. Suddenly, a blinding radiance erupts from Jae-hyun's hands. It is a warm, divine energy that fills the entire office. Sung-jae watches in awe as the light intensifies, realizing that he is seeing the effects of a high-level healing skill with his own eyes. He thinks about how many world-class doctors and healers they sought out to cure the guildmaster, all of whom failed. He realizes that this boy is doing the impossible. Inside the light, Sung-eun gasps. She can feel the symptoms of her illness, the constant pain and the draining of her life force, simply vanishing. She thinks to herself in disbelief, my body is healing. Sung-jae is moved to tears, asking if it's really possible that she's being cured. As the light fades, Jae-hyun stands back, his breathing steady. A system window appears before him, announcing that he has succeeded in healing the target. Another notification follows, showing that his passive skill, emergency first aid, has jumped all the way to level 19. He tells Sung-eun that it's all done and suggests she try moving around. Sung-eun stands up, her movements fluid and free of the weight that has plagued her for years. She looks out the window at the bright sky, feeling like a new person. She turns back to Jae-hyun, her eyes full of gratitude, but then a look of concern crosses her face. She asks him if he will receive a penalty for using such a powerful skill. A small text box reminds us that because he used a blank card, the penalty is negated. Jae-hyun just smirks and tells her he'll be fine. He jokingly adds that if anything does happen, she can just heal him in return. Sung-eun laughs, promising to do exactly that. She reaches into her dress and pulls out a sleek, embossed business card. She hands it to him, telling him that she will try her best to meet all of his demands and that he should contact her whenever he wants. She asks him again to look at the contract in a positive light. Jae-hyun takes the card, looking at it for a moment before telling her there is one more thing he'd like to ask for right now. The scene shifts to the next day. A luxury black sedan pulls up to a wooded area, the sunlight filtering through the trees. Sung-jae, the guard, steps out and opens the door for Jae-hyun. They are standing in front of a low-ranked dungeon that belongs to the Yanhwa Guild. Jae-hyun steps out of the car, looking at the shimmering portal nestled within a stone archway. He thinks to himself that if he wants to survive the competitive environment of the Milla's Academy, he needs to level up as fast as possible. Sung Jae leads him to a set of wooden crates filled with supplies. He explains that he has prepared healing items and simple tools that will be necessary for the raid. He also mentions that the guild is lending him some spare equipment. He hands Jaehyun a sleek, ornate staff topped with a glowing blue orb. Jaehyun takes it, thanking him for the support. Sung Jae looks at him with a worried expression, asking if he's really going to be okay entering a dungeon alone. He points out that even if it's only an E-rank dungeon, solo raiding is always dangerous. Jaehyun just smiles and tells him he just wants to get some experience and level up a bit. Sung Jae sighs and pulls out a small, glowing blue crystal. He tells Jaehyun it's a warp stone and insists he take it. He explains that if Jaehyun finds himself in danger, he can break the stone to return to the guild entrance immediately. He smiles warmly at the boy, telling him it's a token of his apology for being rude the day before and a sign of his gratitude for saving the guild master. Jaehyun accepts the stone, thanking him. He turns toward the portal, the blue energy swirling and crackling before him. He senses the magic power coming from the dungeon and confirms it feels like a standard E-rank. He tells himself he should have no problems. Sung Jae gives him one last reminder to use the stone if anything goes wrong. Jaehyun gives a confident nod and steps into the shimmering blue light of the portal. A system message flashes, "You entered the dungeon." But as he crosses the threshold, the screen begins to glitch and distort. The colors bleed and shift into violent purples and blacks. A new, ominous notification appears. Due to the Nornir system, the user is transported to a specific area. The standard dungeon environment vanishes, replaced by a dark, suffocating atmosphere. A final system window reveals the terrifying truth. The current location is Helheim's land of the dead. Back at the guild headquarters, Sung-eun is sitting at her desk, looking troubled. She thinks about Jaehyun and wonders if he'll be okay. She knows that for a raider candidate to solo clear a dungeon is nearly impossible, even for someone as talented as him. She views him as a brilliant but unpolished gem. She can't understand why he would insist on going in alone. Just then, there is a knock at her door. Her assistant, Park Hannah, enters the room. Sung-eun asks if she has the information she requested. Hannah hands her a folder, confirming it's the profile of Min Jaehyun. Sung-eun opens the folder and her eyes widen in absolute shock. She sees that Jaehyun is registered as a warrior class applicant. She gasps, wondering how a warrior could possibly use the high-level magic she witnessed. She looks further down the profile and sees his aptitude for the magician class is a staggering 97%. She realizes that he isn't just a genius. He is a monster who is hiding his true nature. She stands up and calls someone, her voice urgent. She tells them that as soon as Jaehyun returns, they need to have a meeting immediately. She wants to personally verify the extent of his talent. But back in the land of the dead, Jaehyun is in no position for a meeting. A massive explosion of purple energy throws him through the air. He hits the ground hard, coughing up blood as he struggles to breathe. He looks up to see a desolate graveyard under a haunting, glowing blue moon. The air is thick with death, and the shadows seem to move with a life of their own. He is trapped in a nightmare far beyond his level, and the real fight for survival has only just begun. Jaehyun's body hits the cold, unforgiving ground of the graveyard with a sickening thud, the impact vibrating through his shattered ribs. Thrown violently across the frozen, unforgiving earth, Jaehyun hits the ground with a bone-rattling thud. He coughs up blood, his breath pluming in the frigid air of the desolate graveyard. He struggles to push himself up, his muscles screaming in protest as the chilling fog clings to his dark clothes. He pants heavily, trying to regain his bearings in this nightmare landscape. The sheer force of the impact leaves him disoriented, his vision swimming as he tries to focus on his surroundings. Every breath is a struggle, the icy air burning his lungs. Wiping the blood from his mouth, he curses his situation, his amber eyes scanning the gloom to figure out what just hit him. A massive, shadowy silhouette looms in the distance, obscured by the thick, swirling mist. The oppressive atmosphere of the graveyard presses down on him, the silence broken only by his ragged breathing. He squints, trying to pierce the veil of fog, his instincts screaming that danger is imminent. The dark shape seems to shift and solidify, taking on a terrifying form. The fog parts to reveal a terrifying skeletal archer, its bony fingers drawing back the string of a dark, ancient bow. It manifests a glowing blue arrow of pure, concentrated magic, aiming directly at him. The undead creature's empty eye sockets seem to lock onto his soul, its posture rigid and deadly. The magical energy crackles around the arrowhead, illuminating the surrounding gravestones with an eerie, pale light. Jaehyun realizes he has mere seconds to react before the lethal projectile is unleashed. The arrow is loosed, tearing through the air as a swirling vortex of destructive, icy energy. Jaehyun throws himself to the side just as the projectile impacts, erupting into a massive explosion of frost and force right behind him, sending shockwaves through the graveyard. The sheer power of the blast sends chunks of ice and debris flying in all directions. He barely manages to evade the brunt of the attack, his heart pounding in his chest as the icy shockwave washes over him. He winces, feeling the stinging graze of the attack on his cheek. He realizes how close he came to being obliterated. The cold bites into his skin, a stark reminder of the lethal environment he's trapped in. He touches his face, his fingers coming away with a smear of blood. The reality of his situation sets in. One wrong move, and he's dead. He grits his teeth, his eyes narrowing with determination as he prepares for the next assault. Glancing back, he spots another undead horror emerging from the mist, a cloaked skeleton gripping a wicked, rusted scythe, ready to harvest his soul. The creature moves with a chilling silence, its tattered robes billowing in the unnatural wind. The curved blade of the scythe gleams menacingly in the dim light, a promise of swift and brutal death. Jaehyun's grip tightens, his mind racing to formulate a counterattack against these relentless foes. A numbing sensation spreads through his veins. He realizes he's been afflicted with a paralytic poison from the previous attack, a highly troublesome development that threatens to end his life right here. His movements become sluggish, his muscles refusing to respond with their usual agility. He curses under his breath, knowing that in this state, he's a sitting duck. The poison works quickly, threatening to lock his body in place just as the scythe-wielding skeleton closes in. With no time to waste, golden light flares around him as he activates his unique skill, Sacrifice, preparing to turn the tables. The radiant energy pushes back the encroaching darkness, a beacon of hope in the gloomy graveyard. He channels his mana, focusing the power of the skill, ready to unleash its devastating potential. The golden aura envelopes him, a stark contrast to the necrotic energy of his attackers. Suddenly, a hulking Draugr bursts from the shadows, its glowing blue eyes locked onto him as it lunges forward with terrifying speed. The massive undead warrior wields a heavy, jagged blade, its sheer size and power dwarfing the other skeletons. The ground trembles beneath its heavy footsteps, its roar echoing through the desolate landscape. Jaehyun braces himself, realizing he's now facing a coordinated assault from multiple deadly adversaries. The undead warrior brings its heavy, jagged blade down in a vicious arc, aiming to cleave Jaehyun in two. The sheer force of the swing creates a shockwave, tearing through the icy ground. Jaehyun's eyes widen as he tracks the incoming strike, his mind calculating the trajectory. He knows a direct hit would be fatal, his paralyzed body struggling to move out of the way in time. Jaehyun swiftly pulls a stray arrow from his shoulder, his face twisting in annoyance at the sheer stupidity of his predicament. He tosses the broken shaft aside, his frustration boiling over. He knows he needs a better plan, a way to overcome the poison and the overwhelming numbers. He glares at the advancing undead, his resolve hardening. He refuses to die in this frozen wasteland. Elsewhere, a blonde girl lies on her bed, staring at her phone in frustration. She vents her anger, calling Jaehyun's sudden transfer to the magic class complete nonsense, unable to understand his actions or why he would abandon her. She rolls over, her brow furrowed in confusion and irritation. She mutters to herself, questioning his motives and his sudden change of heart. The memory of his departure stings, leaving her feeling betrayed and bewildered. She thinks back to his habits, remembering how he always despised crowded places and dedicated all his time to rigorous martial arts training. She recalls his intense focus, his unwavering commitment to physical combat. The idea of him suddenly switching to magic seems entirely out of character, a complete contradiction to everything she knows about him. She ponders the mystery, her mind trying to piece together the puzzle of his sudden transformation. Knowing his careful and calculating personality, she deduces there must be a significant, hidden motive behind his drastic change in path, something worth more than all his previous effort. She realizes he wouldn't make such a monumental decision without a very good reason. Her frustration gives way to curiosity, a burning desire to uncover the truth behind his actions. She knows there's more to the story than meets the eye. She recalls how he takes forever just to pick a meal, yet he quickly agreed to attend her speech. She fires off a text, warning him that she'll kill him if he dares to show up late after leaving her alone before. She hits send, her thumb hovering over the screen, a mix of anger and anticipation swirling within her. She hopes her message gets through, a final ultimatum to the boy who turned her world upside down. Back in the frozen wasteland, Jaehyun shivers violently. He realizes the unnatural cold is radiating from the monsters themselves. Above him, four spectral wraiths float ominously, ready to strike. The ethereal creatures drift through the air, their ghostly forms chilling the very atmosphere. He watches them closely, noting their erratic movements and the dark energy trailing behind them. The situation is rapidly deteriorating, the odds stacking higher against him. He takes in the sight of the wraiths, the skeleton archer, and the Draugr, noting their highly organized formation. The reality sets in that he must face this coordinated undead party entirely alone. He realizes they are working together, a tactical unit designed to overwhelm and destroy intruders. He takes a deep breath, steadying his nerves, knowing that panic will only lead to his demise. He prepares to face the onslaught. He grips his weapon tightly, the glowing blue orb of the Lotus Guild's entry-level staff illuminating his determined face as he prepares for battle. The staff hums with magical energy, a fragile lifeline in this deadly encounter. He channels his mana into the weapon, feeling the familiar surge of power. He knows it's a basic tool, but it's all he has to defend himself against the encroaching horde. System interfaces materialize, confirming his worst fears. He has been transported to Helheim, the world of the dead, overseen by the goddess Hel, one of the 9 worlds of Norse mythology. The glowing text hovers before him, a stark confirmation of his dire situation. He reads the lore, his mind processing the terrifying reality of his location. He is trapped in a realm of eternal winter and death. The system details the other realms, emphasizing that Helheim is the coldest, darkest place imaginable, a nightmare zone where the undead roam freely, making it a deadly trap for beginners. The text explains the sheer terror of facing monsters that cannot truly die, a challenge that breaks even seasoned warriors. Jae-hyun absorbs the information, understanding the gravity of the threat he faces. The odds of survival are astronomically low. While facing such horrors without divine skills is usually a death sentence, Jae-hyun's lips curl into a confident smirk. He decides this hellscape is the perfect testing ground for his new powers. He views the deadly environment not as a tomb, but as an opportunity to push his limits. His fear is replaced by a cold, calculating determination. He is ready to unleash his full potential. He reviews the details of his sacrifice skill. While normally a healing wave, against undead, it transforms into the devastating Judgment of Light. He ponders if the skill's true power rivals that of an S-rank ability. The system text confirms the dual nature of the skill, a versatile tool that could turn the tide of battle. He visualizes the destructive potential of the light, ready to bring judgment upon his foes. He quickly realizes that possessing a skill isn't enough. He lacks a true mage's combat know-how. He narrowly dodges a sweeping strike from the Draugr. A notification chimes, signaling the defeat of a wraith and a gain of 70 experience points. He acknowledges his inexperience, knowing he must rely on instinct and raw power. The taste of victory, however small, fuels his determination to keep fighting. He continues his evasive maneuvers, taking down a second wraith for another 140 points. Despite his lack of magical experience, he refuses to let this grinding opportunity slip away. He weaves through the attacks, his movements becoming more fluid as he adapts to the rhythm of the battle. The experience points accumulate, a tangible reward for his survival. He pushes himself harder, determined to clear the area. He raises his staff to block an incoming blow, but the entry-level weapon cracks under the pressure and shatters completely. Another notification pops up, a skeleton soldier defeated, 50 points gained. The loss of his weapon is a severe blow, leaving him vulnerable. He stares at the broken pieces, realizing the limitations of his current gear. He must find another way to fight. Left holding a broken handle, he curses his luck, realizing he can't rely on basic physical attacks to survive this ordeal. He tosses the useless remnant aside, his mind racing for a solution. The undead close in, sensing his vulnerability. He knows he must unleash his trump card, the skill he's been holding back. He prepares to make his stand. He channels his mana, and a blinding pillar of golden energy erupts from his position. The system detects the undead presence and automatically shifts his skill into its offensive form. The radiant light pierces the gloom, a beacon of divine power in the dark realm. The energy swirls around him, building in intensity as he prepares to unleash the Judgment of Light. The radiant blast of Judgment of Light completely obliterates the Draugr. He earns 100 experience points and a crucial level up. The golden energy washes over the battlefield, purifying the undead horrors. The system notifications flash rapidly, confirming his victory and his increased strength. The sheer power of the attack leaves him awestruck, a testament to the potential of his copied skill. Exhausted, he slumps to the icy ground. The skill's secondary effect washes over him, restoring his health to full. He acknowledges the dangerous level gap between him and the monsters, grateful for the timely level up. He curses the Nornir system for dragging him into this mess, realizing the perilous nature of his situation. He takes a moment to catch his breath, the adrenaline slowly fading. Finding the situation increasingly annoying, he contemplates using his warp stone to escape. Suddenly, a suffocating, terrifying mana fills the air. The atmosphere grows heavy, the temperature dropping even further. He freezes, his instincts screaming that a massive threat has arrived. The shadows seem to deepen, coalescing into a tangible force of malice. He gasps, unable to breathe under the crushing pressure. The system announces the arrival of the dungeon's boss, Nightshade. A colossal, shadowy entity materializes before him. The sheer size and power of the boss are overwhelming, its dark form absorbing the little light that remains. Jae-hyun realizes he is completely outmatched, his newly acquired strength insignificant against this monstrous foe. Paralyzed by the overwhelming aura, he realizes he cannot fight or flee. He forces himself to remain perfectly still and silent, hoping to go unnoticed by the massive threat. He holds his breath, his heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. He watches the shadow, praying it will pass him by. The tension is unbearable, every second stretching into an eternity. The darkness shifts, and a striking woman emerges from the shadows. She possesses long white hair, demonic horns, and piercing heterochromic eyes. Her presence is commanding, exuding an aura of absolute power. She steps forward, her gaze locking onto Jae-hyun. The sheer intensity of her stare sends shivers down his spine. He realizes this is no ordinary monster, this is a being of immense significance. She extends a hand toward him, a wicked smile playing on her lips. She addresses him directly, calling him an important guest. She reveals that she brought him here herself, identifying him as the one destined to be the adversary meant to kill her. However, she looks him up and down, noting with amusement that he is still just a kid with a remarkably average build. Her words hang in the air, a chilling revelation that changes everything. Jae-hyun stares back, his mind reeling from the implications of her statement. He is trapped in the world of the dead, face to face with a being of unimaginable power. A pale hand grips Jae-hyun's jaw. The mysterious woman with demonic horns stares him down, her fingers grazing his skin as she mocks his average physique. This is no chance encounter. She sees a spark deep within his soul that shouldn't belong to a commoner. Her overwhelming presence locks his muscles in place, proving that even with his new skills, the gap between a human and a true ruler of the dead is a literal abyss. He stares back, realizing survival in Helheim requires him to become the very monster she expects. The screen fades to absolute black. A heavy system message flickers, asking if this is the end of his journey. Jae-hyun confronts his mortality in the crushing silence of the void, feeling his heart rate drop as the necrotic weight of the realm threatens to extinguish his spirit. This is the ultimate test of resolve where the system itself questions his right to exist. If he cannot find an answer in this darkness, his life as a mage ends before the first chapter truly closes. The goddess smiles with chilling malice. She leans in with a mix of hunger and amusement, treating Jae-hyun like a toy that hasn't quite snapped yet. Her heterochromic eyes glow with ancient, terrifying power, suggesting she's watched countless heroes perish exactly where he stands. Jae-hyun realizes her twisted interest is his only lifeline, a double-edged blade that could grant him godlike status or a fate far worse than death. He has to play his cards perfectly to keep this predator from losing interest. A dark orb pulses with necrotic energy. The system issues a final warning that the end is approaching fast, turning the graveyard atmosphere into a suffocating shroud of death. Jae-hyun feels his mana reserves twitching in fear, reacting to the encroaching shadows that want to harvest his life force. This is a countdown to total annihilation with zero room for error. He needs to move immediately, or he'll end up as just another frozen relic in the world of the dead. Purple energy chokes the air around him. Jae-hyun gasps as the woman's aura flares, manifesting as a physical weight that threatens to shatter his ribs. She isn't even trying to kill him yet, but the sheer leak of her mana is terraforming the environment into a waking nightmare. He is staring at a being capable of erasing entire cities with a single thought. To survive, he has to learn how to breathe in this toxic atmosphere of pure, unadulterated death. Nightshade looms in the shadows behind her. The massive dungeon boss materializes with multiple glowing eyes fixed on Jae-hyun like a predator watching a cornered rabbit. This isn't just a monster, it's a manifestation of the realm's spite, a guardian designed to ensure nothing living ever escapes Helheim. Jae-hyun's instincts scream that his current level is a pathetic joke compared to this titan. He needs a miracle or a massive power spike to even stand a chance of staying alive. Red system windows flicker across his vision. The interface warns him that his time has officially run out, and the first hidden quest of this nightmare is beginning. Every notification is a red flag, signaling that the rules have shifted from simple survival to a desperate, high-stakes hunt. He is being forced into a role he never requested, with the system acting as a cruel, divine director. The next few seconds will determine if he's a protagonist or a footnote. Dark tentacles lash out from the frozen earth. The ground beneath Jae-hyun erupts in a surge of shadowy limbs, seeking to drag him into the bottomless depths of the underworld. This isn't a standard physical attack, it's a soul-binding technique meant to tether him to Helheim forever. He realizes the goddess is testing his agility and his will to remain human in a place that loathes life. If he gets caught, his soul will be harvested before he can cast another spell. A hand reaches through a blinding light. Amidst the swirling chaos of the dark realm, a vision of a different path manifests, offering a singular glimmer of hope. Jae-hyun reaches out, his fingers brushing against a warmth that shouldn't exist in this wasteland. It's a moment of pure desperation, a gamble on a power he doesn't fully understand. This light is his only exit strategy to escape the goddess's direct, soul-piercing gaze. Sunlight hits the forest floor with jarring brightness. Suddenly, the oppressive cold of Helheim vanishes, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the scent of fresh earth. Jae-hyun finds himself back in the mortal realm, the transition so violent it leaves his head spinning in circles. He's alive, but the mark of the dead realm is etched into his memory like a jagged scar. He survived the encounter, but the goddess's words about his destiny are now a permanent weight on his soul. System windows pop up to confirm his status. The text floating in the air notes that his lethal injuries have completely vanished, as if the goddess decided he was too entertaining to let break. He touches his chest, feeling the steady beat of a heart that should have stopped a dozen times over. This isn't just basic healing, it's a total restoration, a sign that he's been drafted into a much larger, deadlier game. He wonders if he's still human, or if something was swapped out during the transition. Jae-hyun grips his shirt tightly. He checks his torso for the lingering sting of skeletal arrows, but finds only smooth skin and a lingering, supernatural chill. The reality of his survival begins to sink in, bringing a wave of cold fury toward the systems that treat his life like a plaything. He isn't a pawn anymore. He's a survivor who looked into the eyes of death and refused to blink. Every future move is now dedicated to ensuring he is never that helpless again. The goddess's face haunts his vision. Even in the safety of the woods, he can see her mocking smile and those piercing, mismatched eyes. She mentioned Loki, a name carrying the weight of mischief and divine lies, suggesting Jaehyun's existence is part of a cosmic prank. If he is truly the adversary, he is destined to bring down the very beings who call themselves gods. He realizes his path as a mage isn't about study, it's about execution. A shadow falls over the forest path. Jae-hyun realizes that although he escaped the physical realm of death, the goddess's influence follows him like a persistent curse. The title, adversary, pulses in his mind, a constant reminder that he is now a marked man in the eyes of the 9 worlds. He has the potential to be a god killer, but currently, he's just a boy with a broken staff. The hunt has officially begun, and he is the ultimate prize. His fist clenches the dirt. Jae-hyun vows that he will never be tossed around like a rag doll again, his determination manifesting as a faint golden glow around his knuckles. One thing is now crystal clear, the peace he once knew is dead, replaced by a brutal necessity to level up at any cost. He has a target on his back, and the only way to protect it is to become so powerful that no god dares to pull the trigger. The era of the average mage is over. The screen bleeds a deep, visceral red. A final message warns that the goddess will definitely kill him if they ever meet again, a promise written in the blood of his own fear. This isn't a hollow threat, it's a factual statement from a being that doesn't understand how to lie. Jae-hyun accepts this reality with a cold, calculated nod. He has a deadline now, a date with the goddess that he intends to keep, on his own terms. He looks at his trembling hands. The realization that he isn't used to fighting as a caster hits him hard, as his instincts still lean toward the physical combat of his past life. He's a warrior trapped in the body of a mage, a hybrid anomaly that the world isn't prepared for. This dissonance is his greatest current weakness, but if he can bridge the gap, it will become his ultimate weapon. He must master the mana in his veins before it burns him from the inside out. A phone screen lights up the dim woods. A message from Park Sung-jae appears, shattering the supernatural silence with the mundane reality of the human world. It's a jarring reminder that while he was fighting for his soul, life for everyone else just kept moving. The contrast is almost sickening, but it provides the anchor he needs to stay grounded. He has a meeting to attend, and for once, the stakes are purely political. Representative Yoo Sung-jian wants a meeting. The text indicates that one of the most powerful figures in the guild world is personally requesting his presence. This isn't a casual chat, it's a high-level talent scout realizing that Jae-hyun has become an anomaly in the system. He smirks, knowing his value just skyrocketed after surviving a trip to the land of the dead. It's time to stop being a student and start being a professional player. Jae-hyun types a bold, calculated reply. He states he's optimistic about the contract, but only if they can do him one more favor, showing he's already learned how to leverage his unique position. He isn't entering this meeting as a beggar, he's a strategic asset with experiences no one else can claim. He's playing the long game, building a foundation of resources to eventually challenge the gods. This favor is the first step in his master plan. He walks through a polished hallway. The sound of his footsteps echoes against the expensive floors of the guild headquarters, a sharp contrast to the crunch of Helheimer's frozen earth. Jae-hyun carries himself with a new air of authority, his eyes instinctively scanning for exits and potential threats. The people around him see a young man, but the shadows in his gaze tell a much darker story. He is a veteran of a war they don't even know is happening. People whisper as he passes by. The text highlights how society continues to glorify martial arts while looking down on mages, a prejudice Jae-hyun is about to shatter. He listens to their contempt with an amused inner monologue, knowing he could likely wipe the floor with any glorified warrior in the building. Their ignorance is his greatest advantage, a shroud that keeps his true potential hidden until the moment he decides to unleash it. Yoo Sung-jian greets him with a sharp smile. The red-haired guild leader stands waiting, her eyes calculating as she welcomes him to her inner sanctum. She isn't just a boss, she's a predator in a suit who knows exactly how much a life is worth on the open market. Jae-hyun maintains his composure, meeting her gaze with a level of confidence that clearly catches her off guard. The negotiation begins before a single word of the contract is even read. The title, Mythic Item, flashes on the screen. This is the prize Jae-hyun is truly after, a piece of gear that can bridge the massive power gap between him and the monsters of the 9 worlds. He knows that in a world of stats and levels, the right item is worth more than 1,000 hours of standard training. The triangle logo of the series appears, signaling that his path to greatness is tied to the artifacts of the gods themselves. Contract terms appear in floating black boxes. The guild offers an endless supply of equipment up to B rank and a generous profit split of 8-2 in his favor. This is an unprecedented deal for any rookie, a sign of just how desperate Son Jian is to secure his loyalty. Jae-hyun reads between the lines, looking for the hidden catches that always accompany such generous offers. He's looking for a partnership, not a leash to be held by the guild. Son Jian leans in with a predatory smile. She asks what his specific condition is, her tone light but her eyes showing she's ready to negotiate for his very soul. She likely expects him to ask for money, fame, or trivial luxuries. Jae-hyun, however, has seen the literal end of the world, and his desires are far more pragmatic and dangerous. He is about to ask for something that will shift the balance of power in the entire organization. He points a finger with absolute decision. Jae-hyun demands that Guildmaster Yu Son-jian herself be the one to assist him with his specific needs, cutting out every middleman in the hierarchy. This move establishes a direct line to the top, ensuring he won't be bogged down by bureaucracy or low-level guild politics. He needs the best resources, and the best resource in this building is the woman sitting across from him. Internal thoughts flash across his mind. Jae-hyun muses that the best cards must be used when they are most effective, revealing his hidden tactical brilliance. He's not just reacting to the world anymore, he's a player at the table, moving pieces with cold, calculated precision. He knows Son Jian's interest is a finite resource, so he must extract every bit of value while his leverage is at its peak. He's playing a dangerous game where the stakes are his life. Son Jian laughs at his audacity. She finds his boldness refreshing, a sharp change from the sycophants who usually crawl through her office looking for scraps. Her amusement is a positive sign, indicating she respects strength and gall over submissiveness. She realizes Jae-hyun isn't someone she can easily control with a standard contract, which makes him infinitely more valuable to her long-term goals. The deal is sealed the moment she smiles. Jae-hyun stands tall, ready for the next phase. He asks if his condition is acceptable, his voice steady despite the immense pressure radiating from the guildmaster. He expected her to push back, and he was fully prepared to walk away if his terms weren't met. This is the moment where he transitions from a victim of the system to a master of it. He's no longer just a kid with a mythic item, he's the man who knows how to use it. She nods with a final, knowing smirk. Son Jian agrees to his terms, her curiosity piqued by this boy who carries the weight of an old soul. She wonders what he could possibly do with the resources of a top-tier guild, unaware that he's preparing for a literal war against the gods. Their alliance is forged in raw ambition, a partnership that will either burn the world to the ground or save it from the coming darkness. A blue mana orb begins to glow. Son Jian leads him to a massive, high-tech testing facility where the air hums with the vibration of magical machinery. This is the proving ground where reputations are forged or shattered in an instant. Jae-hyun looks at the swirling energy with grim anticipation, knowing this is where he must prove his worth to the guild. He isn't just testing his mana, he's testing his survival instincts in a controlled environment. She waves a hand dismissively toward the portal. Son Jian tells him to do his best, her tone suggesting she expects a good show but remains unconvinced of his mythic status. She wants to see the raw power that allowed him to survive Hellhammer and witness the anomaly firsthand. Jae-hyun steps toward the testing chamber, his mind focusing on the specific wavelengths of mana that only he has the ability to perceive. Jae-hyun enters the blue portal. He steps into a swirling vortex of energy, his silhouette disappearing into a bright, cerulean light. This isn't just a test of raw output, it's a transition into a new reality where he is finally the one in control of the elements. The transition is seamless, showing his growing affinity for the magical forces that once terrified him. He's diving headfirst into the deep end of the mana pool. Son Jian watches the monitors with intense focus. She asks her assistant why they were so certain about this boy, her eyes never leaving the data streams. She's a skeptic by nature, but something about Jae-hyun's presence has her second-guessing her decades of experience. She senses a storm brewing inside him, a hidden reservoir of power that defies every known law of magic. She is watching the birth of a legend. Jae-hyun crouches in a vast mana sea. He finds himself submerged in a liquid state of pure energy, the pressure of the environment testing the absolute limits of his physical form. It's a beautiful, terrifying landscape of blue light and rising bubbles, a place where reality is dictated by the strength of one's will. He isn't drowning, he's adapting, his body absorbing the ambient mana like a sponge. This is the ultimate training ground for the adversary. He takes a deep, steady breath. To his surprise, he can breathe perfectly in this magical ocean, a feat that would be impossible for any standard mage. The system notes that he was worried about mana addiction, a lethal condition for those who overconsume energy, but his unique constitution ignores the risk. He's an anomaly that can thrive in environments that would kill a normal human in seconds. He isn't just a mage, he is a vessel. He swims through the dense mana. Jae-hyun realizes that finding a way out of this test is his first priority, his movements fluid and purposeful in the blue void. He remembers the lessons learned in Hellhammer, applying the same cold logic to this simulated environment. He's looking for the exit, but more importantly, he's looking for the limits of the facility's sensors. He doesn't want the Lotus Guild to see his full hand just yet. He focuses his internal vision. Jae-hyun knows he has to feel the wavelength of the mana to navigate this dizzyingly tangled mess of energy. It's like searching for a single thread in a massive, glowing knot, a task requiring absolute mental discipline. He shuts out the noise of his own heartbeat, letting his consciousness drift until it matches the frequency of the room. This is the true essence of magic, harmony over brute force. A sharp light pierces the blue depths. He detects a fluctuation in the energy, a sign that he's successfully found the core of the testing chamber. This is the brain of the facility, the point where all the mana is regulated and monitored. If he can tap into this, he can control the test itself, proving his mastery goes beyond simple casting. He's a hacker in a world of code, and the mana is his keyboard. Jae-hyun turns around with a confident smirk. He senses the exit opening, his mission accomplished with more ease than even he anticipated. A massive ocean of mana glows. Jae-hyun floats in pure energy, absorbing the liquid power like a supernatural sponge. This isn't a test for him, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. He's devouring the guild's most sacred resource. The assistant narrows his eyes. He's skeptical that a mere rookie can overcome the legendary mana cube. But Jae-hyun's history is a trail of broken logic, and the guild is about to be humbled. Songjin crosses her arms with a smirk. She recalls her 40-minute clear, a record that made her a national legend. She expects a show, but she's totally unprepared for a total system override. The assistant stares at his tablet in horror. His hand trembles as he looks at the timer. It's only been 10 minutes, and Jae-hyun's mana output is already redlining past the safety limits. Songjin's confident smile vanishes instantly. The fastest hunter in the country just got turned into a footnote. This isn't a fluke, it's a declaration of war against the status quo. Jagged cracks spiderweb across the cube. The monitoring equipment screams as high-density mana leaks into the room. Jae-hyun isn't just passing the test, he's physically destroying the simulation from the inside out. The room erupts in cerulean lightning. The assistant gasps as the cube shatters into a million fragments. Jae-hyun has broken the record and the guild's reality. Now, the real game begins.